Born an illegitimate child within a ruthless royal family, Yoan knew only pain. From his earliest days, his brothers used him as a punching bag, punishing him simply for being weak. That torture taught him a single, brutal truth. The only person he could ever rely on was himself. After reincarnating into the body of this despised bastard prince, he made a life-altering vow. He would forge his body into an unbreakable weapon. He committed to the path of a bodybuilder, pushing his limits by running miles, consuming massive amounts of protein, and drilling martial arts daily. After years of hellish discipline, the frail boy was gone. In his place stood a monster. He possessed the power to shatter trees with a single punch and level entire forests. With every grueling workout, his raw, crushing strength grew without a ceiling. In this unforgiving realm, the law is simple. The blood of the weak is spilled so the strong may feast. Deep in a shadowed forest, a creature steps out to graze, unaware of the death lingering nearby. Hidden in the dense brush, a hunter's eyes lock onto the target. This is his prey. He steadies his breath, reciting the mantra of his training. The bowstring tightens, screaming under the tension as he readies the kill shot. But the moment he releases, disaster strikes. The bow snaps in half with a thunderous crack. The noise sends the animal bolting in terror. Beside him, his companion cries out for Lord Yoan. He demands to know why Yoan destroyed the weapon instead of securing their dinner. Yoan replies coolly that the bow was simply too fragile for his strength. The man argues back, claiming he bought it mere days ago. He stares at the young noble, baffled. Why does someone of Yoan's station insist on playing hunter? He suggests that a noble should be mastering the art of the sword, not lurking in the mud. The young lord remains stoic. Yoan explains that swordsmanship yields no coin until a mercenary contract is signed. He signals to move on. In this rotten world, money is the only oxygen, and he needs it to breathe. His current name is Yoanites, but in a past life, he was Kim Yan. An accident severed his previous existence, throwing him into this harsh new reality. Though reborn with noble blood, he sits at the very bottom of the family totem pole. His chances of inheriting wealth or power are absolute zero. Suddenly, his companion freezes. Directly ahead, a pack of wolves prowls the path. The man fires a warning shot, causing the beasts to scatter into the shadows. Yoan watches with cold, calculating eyes. The world he has reincarnated into isn't a fantasy. It is a gritty, hyper-realistic medieval nightmare. They stumble upon a gruesome pile of corpses. The young lord mutters that even death offers these poor souls no peace. His companion wonders if they are villagers from back home. Yoan shrugs. It is impossible to identify them now. But one fact remains absolute. The weak are merely food for the strong. To escape the fate of prey in this savage era, he requires wealth. When he first opened his eyes in this world, he prayed for a cheat skill or magical awakening. He quickly realized such fantasies do not exist here. So he shifted his objective. His new god is gold. With enough coin, he can abandon this cursed territory and forge his own destiny, perhaps as a wealthy merchant or a free landowner. As Yoan loses himself in these plans, his companion waves him over urgently. He points to a rare find hidden in the undergrowth, the medicinal herb known as Little Demon's grass. It is a rare treasure, legendary for its blood-clotting properties. Yoan snatches the herb instantly. This isn't just a plant, it is a winning lottery ticket. He secures the prize. Suddenly, the young lord notices a leather pouch lying on the forest floor. He asks if his companion dropped it. The hunter denies it. Yoan frowns. It makes no sense. No one else dares to venture this deep into the monster-infested woods. A realization strikes the older hunter. Before he can speak, a chilling sound rips through the trees, startling them both. They hear the frantic footsteps of someone running for their life. The snarling of wolves grows louder, closing in for the kill. They rush forward and find a child trapped up a tree, besieged by a hungry wolf pack. The companion gasps, recognizing her as Dell, the daughter of Robert. He questions why a child is alone in this hell. The pack turns, eyes glowing with malice. Joseph warns that the numbers are too great to fight solo. He urges a retreat to summon guards, but Yoan ignores him, stepping calmly toward the beasts. His companion screams that these are no ordinary wolves. Yoan commands him to rescue the girl while he draws the pack's attention. Joseph goes silent, stunned by the noble's behavior. He cannot fathom that a noble would offer himself as bait for a commoner. But Yoan isn't thinking about heroism. He realizes this situation is a literal gold mine. He regrets not learning hunting sooner. He counts 10 wolves. His mind races with calculations. If he sells 10 pristine pelts, he will be rich. He shouts at his precious sources of money to stay right there. The older hunter watches in confusion, unable to grasp the young lord's greed. Yoan draws his blade. His companion winces at the clumsy stance, questioning what kind of messy swordsmanship the boy intends to use. The pack strikes. Yoan moves with explosive speed as the first wolf lunges, jaws snapping at his face. It bites down hard on his steel blade. A sickening crack echoes as the sword shatters under the pressure. The wolf recoils, and for a split second, shock flashes across Yoan's face. He has no time to recover. Another wolf flanks him. The pack circles, cutting off all escape. Joseph watches in horror, screaming Sir Yoan's name as the beasts close in. Meanwhile, back in Baltrodin village, the royal family conducts a territorial inspection. Peasants bow low as the entourage passes. A father shields his child, fear in his eyes. Madamites, the lord's concubine, sneers at the squalor. Complaining loudly about the village's stench, the eldest son, Philip, rides in silence. Lord Xen, ruler of this land, echoes her disgust, mocking the filth of the countryside. Philip breaks the silence, informing his father that Yoan is still missing. He suggests dispatching soldiers for a search party. At the mere mention of Yoan's name, Xen's face twists in anger. He commands them to forget the boy. He cares not if the brat dies in a ditch, just like his mother. Lord Xen laughs cruelly, a sound that is suddenly cut short. Something out of place. Gessen's eyes narrow at the massive hay bale sitting at the village entrance. A nervous villager admits they were trying to hide the evidence of Yan's secret training. The noble scoffs, his voice dripping with disdain. He mocks the very idea. How could a pathetic insect like that possibly cultivate strength? But his arrogance shatters the moment the hay is pulled away. Gessen freezes, staring at what lies beneath. Imprinted deep into the solid wood is the mark of a human fist, but the terror doesn't stop there. He looks around and realizes the entire grove has been decimated in the exact same way. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, the real violence begins. Yan stands surrounded by the wolf pack. One beast growls, but fear makes it hesitate. Before the strike, Yan realizes the blade feels wrong in his hands. It's too slow. He tosses the wolf aside like a ragdoll. He challenges his beautiful, walking piles of gold to come at him. It's time to fight his way. In this brutal era, only the strongest survive. And right now, he needs cash. To get it, he has to slaughter the entire pack closing in on him. He doesn't just need strength. He needs overwhelming power that transcends human limits. His fists fly in a blur of violence. He unleashes a storm of punches against the pack. Joseph can only watch, paralyzed by the display. The impacts sound like gunshots. Yin launches one wolf into the air, crashing it into the others. He snatches another by the throat, ending its life with a single, surgical strike. The beast drops dead instantly. Joseph's mind goes blank. He can't comprehend that kind of raw power. Yan stands victorious amidst a sea of corpses. But he isn't panting. He's calculating exactly how much this slaughter is worth. Yan had learned the hard way. This world offers no mercy. His noble brothers branded him a mistaken, illegitimate, motherless bastard. They made his life a living hell, beating him for sport and promising death if he ever dared to fight back. He learned the golden rule of this cruel reality. No one cares if you die. In the end, the only person he could trust was himself. He asked the ultimate question: what does a man need to dominate a primitive medieval world? Fate had dealt him one ace card: his memories as a modern student. While these people prayed to gods, Yan's mind held scientific knowledge they couldn't even dream of. He decided to weaponize that wisdom. He didn't just train, he engineered his body using modern exercise science and high-intensity interval training. He optimized his fuel, creating a nutritionally perfect diet. From the scraps others threw away as trash, the young man built a regimen based on biology and honed his reflexes with close-quarters combat techniques. Day after day, the compound interest of his suffering grew. Years passed, and finally, the results spoke for themselves. He struck the tree one last time. Asterisk crack. The solid trunk snapped like a twig under his fist. With every session, he became less human and more monster. Energy surged through his veins. But even he didn't know if this terrifying strength was a blessing or a curse. Back in the present, the sounds of battle fade. Yoan dusts off, his hands casual as a morning stroll. He scans the massacre, confirming the last of the walking wallets is down. Joseph rushes to check on Dell, and the girl clings to him in relief. The veteran hunter sighs, his heart still racing. He scolds Sir Yoan for his recklessness, asking if he has a death wish, but he admits the truth: he was moved. Yoan had stepped before a beast to protect, a defenseless servant girl, a true hero. But Yoan? He was just wondering which bloody pelt would fetch the premium market price. He asks what Joseph is mumbling about, but the hunter dismisses it. Yoan turns to Dell, asking if she's hurt. She thanks him, voice trembling, but suddenly the blood drains from her face. Behind them, a nightmare steps out of the shadows. They spin around to face the new horror. Dell buries her face in her hands. The beast locks its gaze upon them. A low growl vibrates through Yoan's chest. Joseph screams in terror. It's a monster. Sir Yoan, run. He knows a beast of that magnitude usually takes a battalion to bring down. Yoan stays calm. Are you the manager here? He mockingly apologizes for wiping out its staff, noting that wolf pelts pay the rent. The creature doesn't appreciate the humor. It growls. Realizing this human is the threat, jaw unhinged, it lunges for the kill. Yoan doesn't flinch. Doesn't matter what you are. He grabs a jagged rock. Your hide is worth double the others. Asterisk smash. Asterisk. He drives the stone into the creature's skull. The giant reels back from the impact. Yoan clicks his tongue. Damn, I scratched the leather. There goes the profit margin. The creature's eyes burn with pure fury. It unleashes a deafening howl that rips through the forest air. The sound wave hits them like a physical blow. Everyone clamps their hands over their ears. Even Yoan stumbles as the piercing scream disorients him. What was that? His strength evaporates instantly. Chaos erupts in the clearing. Yoan collapses, consciousness slipping away. When he snaps back to reality, he struggles to sit up. He scans the area, wondering where the jackpot went, but the monster has vanished into thin air. He spots Joseph and Dell passed out nearby. Checking their pulse, he sighs. They're alive. He hoists Joseph onto his back. We need to move. Now, if one appeared, others might follow. He begins the trek back to safety. As he walks, a deep regret gnaws at him, not for the danger, but for the fortune and wolf pelts he had to leave behind. The forest settles into silence, but as the village comes into view, the village lights still pierced the night sky. Yoan wondered if the search party was out for Dell. A perfect chance to score points with her father. A wild thought crossed his mind. What if he was named successor for slaughtering the wolf pack? He shook his head, dismissing the fantasy. He would settle for a simple guard position just to keep his belly full. Suddenly, he froze. A torch flickered in the darkness ahead. His father's inspection squad blocked the path like a wall of iron. Yoan's blood ran cold. Philip roared his name, furiously demanding to know why Yoan had skipped the mandatory inspection. Asterisk, damn it. Asterisk, the realization hit him like a physical blow. He had completely forgotten his commitment. Lord Gazin rode closer, his eyes burning with contempt. Immature bastard. He dismounted, boots shaking the earth as he landed. Clutching the unconscious Dell, Yoan tried to explain, but Gazin silenced him instantly. Shut your mouth. The Lord raised his massive battle axe. He threatened to crush Yoan's skull if the boy dared to breathe another excuse. Yoan stared at the dirt, trembling, before lifting his gaze with renewed fire. I didn't skip it out of laziness. I was saving lives. Suddenly, a man burst from the crowd, recognizing little Dell. He embraced the child, weeping with gratitude that she was safe. The father held his daughter tight, repeating his thanks over and over. Yoan seized the moment. Pointing to the dark forest, he declared, "She was surrounded by wolves. I fought them off alone." He turned to the villagers. "I may have missed the inspection, but I fulfilled my duty as a son of this knightly house." Bowing deeply, he vowed to protect the estate. Then he pushed his luck, asking for the captain of the guard position. He smiled, thinking his self-promotion was flawless, but Gazen's expression remained ice cold. "Proof," Gazen demanded. "Show me the carcasses." Yoan stood his ground, insisting he wasn't lying. "I even faced the great black wolf." The villagers gasped, but Gazen's jaw dropped before twisting into rage. "Liar," Gazen roared. "I'll rip that lying tongue from your throat." Trapped, Yoan saw only one way out. "I demand a duel." He turned, knowing he had no choice. Gazen accepted with a cruel grin. "Fine. Let's see what you're really made of." He ordered Yoan to raise his sword. It was to be a duel of steel. Yoan stared back, sweat forming on his brow. The horrifying truth dawned on him. Father never taught me swordplay. The two faced off in the center of the arena. "Draw," Gazen barked. Yoan revealed only a shattered hilt. Gazen gestured to Philip to lend the boy a weapon. Philip approached, handing over his blade with a sneer. "Beg for forgiveness," he whispered. "It's the only way you leave alive." Yoan refused. "I did nothing wrong. A man does not run." He shoved his brother aside and gripped the borrowed steel. He took his stance. Gazen lowered his helmet, ready for combat. Yoan focused every ounce of his will, determined to prove his worth. He didn't wait. Yoan launched himself into the attack. Gazen's eyes widened in shock at the speed. Clang. Sword met axe in a shower of sparks. But the blade couldn't withstand the impact. It shattered instantly. A shard sliced into Yoan's forehead. Gazen stumbled back, humiliated, before his shock turned to murderous fury. He advanced with the axe, screaming, "You useless parasite!" Yoan barely leaned back to dodge the killing blow. "He insulted the Lord," Philip shouted. A villager gasped, realizing Gazen truly intended to slaughter his own son. Gazen swung again. "I never taught you because you are trash. You will never surpass me. This estate is mine. Not even the Emperor can take it." Yoan stared back, unblinking, as blood poured down his face. The crimson liquid blinded him. "Yoan!" Philip screamed, mock concern masking his glee. Gazen struck with the axe handle. The crowd watched in horror. Yoan blocked with the ruined hilt, but it crumbled to dust under the overwhelming force. Defeated, he looked up at his father and sank to his knees, surrounded by the fragments of his failure. Gazen loomed over him. "Know your place. If I see your face again, I really will crush your skull." The Lord turned his back, leaving Yoan broken in the dirt. The crowd swarmed in as a villager cried out his name. Far away in the sanctuary, a voice thundered. Sir Gazen's actions were unjust. Inside, Yoan hissed, "Quiet down." But the priest slammed his hand on the table. "I am from the Vatican. I don't care who hears me. How can a man treat his own flesh and blood like a beast?" Yoan, head heavily bandaged, forced a smile. "I'm alive. That's enough." "It's ridiculous," the priest spat. Yoan looked away, the weight of reality crushing his spirit. He leaned against the table, bitterness rising. It wasn't just lack of training, he was utterly powerless. The priest sighed, his anger softening. "It makes sense you lost. Gazen is a monster of the battlefield, a master of the family arts." He lowered his voice. "Rumor has it, he once slaughtered 300 soldiers single-handedly." Yoan's eyes went wide. Yoan emphasized the absolute importance of technique. He added a chilling detail: he believed he could defeat his father because he had already faced a massive black wolf. The statement hung in the air. The priest whipped around, his eyes wide with shock. He grabbed Yoan by the shoulders, desperation in his grip. "Is it true?" he demanded. "Did you really see a black wolf in the forest?" Yoan confirmed the story without hesitation. He added that Joseph and Dell had witnessed the beast as well. The priest recoiled, visible alarm painted on his face. Confused, Yoan asked what the problem was with a simple wolf. The priest turned away, trembling. He pulled an ancient book from the shelf and slammed it open in front of Yoan. The truth was far darker than a mere animal encounter. He explained that black wolves were a cursed taboo. They were not just beasts, but omens of death. Ancient legends whispered that wherever they appeared, slaughter and bloodshed followed in their wake. Yoan shook his head, skeptical of the superstition. "I don't believe in myths," he said. "Maybe it just foreshadowed my duel with my father." The priest forced a smile, trying to reassure him. "Do not worry, child. They are just old tales." He suggested that perhaps God was protecting Yoan because of his pure heart. "You are someone who puts others before yourself," the priest concluded. His words made Yoan smile, though doubt still lingered in his eyes. Was he really that good? The scene shifted, pulling back to the ominous night. Darkness fell over the Brits' barony, near the family's lands. But the silence was shattered by chaos. Agonizing cries for help and desperate pleas for mercy echoed through the estate. A mother clutched her child, begging for their lives, but mercy was nowhere to be found. Both met their tragic end in an instant. A crimson trail of blood spread through the darkness like a plague. A lifeless hand fell heavily onto the dirt. The slaughter was absolute. One soldier wiped his blade, asking why the villagers even tried to run. Another replied with a cold sneer, "They die anyway. It is just the cruelty of the world." A third soldier questioned the orders to massacre everyone and burn the bodies. But he quickly shrugged it off. "I don't care. We do our job for the gold." Before a massive, burning gate, two figures met amidst the flames. A mercenary knelt before Sir Karamov. "It is done," he reported. He handed over the Brit's family signet ring as proof of the deed. Karamov took it, her expression unreadable. She simply repeated the family name, savoring the destruction. "I had high expectations for Brits," she scoffed. "But he didn't last 2 attacks. Pathetic." Karamov stood tall, radiating authority. She introduced herself as the sword of the Holy Empire and the direct representative of her Imperial Majesty. "I am the seal collector," she declared. Her decree was absolute. She would punish all corrupt nobles in accordance with the Emperor's divine will. She promised that those who stood with the Emperor would drown in gold and honor. But for the enemies of the throne, only death awaited. Karamov pointed her blade forward. "Kill, loot, burn everything." Her army roared in approval, marching toward their next target, Yoan's estate. The scene dissolved into a chaotic battlefield. 2 warriors traded lethal blows. Blades clashed dangerously close to a helm, sparks flying in the dark. A knight in full plate armor blocked a heavy strike. His hooded opponent parried with lightning speed. The swords locked together in a violent struggle for dominance. With a swift, brutal move, the helmet was ripped from the hooded warrior's head. Blood sprayed into the darkness. The empty helmet rolled across the cold stone floor. It revealed a bloodied, familiar face. His eyes snapped open in terror. Yoan jolted upright in his bed, gasping for air. He was alone in his room, sweat dripping down his forehead. Hand to his face, he wondered if it was just a dream. But the realization hit him like a physical blow. He had been suffering the same nightmare for days, ever since he laid eyes on that black wolf. The priest's warning echoed in his mind. The wolf was an ancient omen of misfortune. Its very existence was a curse that spread blood and invited death. Even the holy men called it the sign of the reaper. But Yoan shook his head, dismissing the fear. "It is just a legend," he told himself sternly. "I didn't even hurt the wolf." Then the memory of the forest encounter returned. He cringed. He actually had thrown a rather large rock at it. Shaking off the useless anxiety, he decided to clear his head. Dusk settled over the hill as Yoan trained alone. Suddenly, a voice pierced the air. "Useless brat." Yoan turned to see 2 men approaching. They sneered, reminding him of his father's command to keep a low profile. "Does chopping wood really make you stronger?" they mocked. The ridicule continued. "Breaking logs is a cheap parlor trick for someone like you." They laughed at his dream of joining the guard. "Your father would never appoint trash like you," one spat. The insults turned vicious. "He would only use you to crack your skull open and feed you to the pigs." Yoan didn't say a word. With a single, casual punch, he completely obliterated the wooden log in front of him. It exploded into splinters. The 2 men froze, their eyes wide and mouths gaping in shock. Yoan looked at the splintered stump, then turned his cold gaze back to the men. "Step closer," he invited calmly. "Say that again." Terrified by his raw power, they refused and scrambled away, yelling that they would tell his father. Yoan watched them flee. Pathetic idiots, he muttered. They should worry about their own futures. Ignoring the distraction, he returned to his training. What they said is true, you know. A familiar voice broke his focus. Philip approached, his expression serious. Father has no intention of appointing you to any position, Philip revealed. Yoan didn't look surprised. I suspected as much, he replied. Considering I haven't been killed yet, it could be worse. Philip asked if he was disappointed. Yoan simply shrugged. I'll just have to find another way to survive. Then, Philip dropped the heavy truth. Father is afraid of you. Yoan stopped his punch mid-air, the air crackling with tension. The young man turned slowly to face his brother. Philip stepped closer. Your strength is undeniable, Yoan, and that makes you a threat. Father wants obedient puppets like me, Philip admitted bitterly. But you insist on living by your own principles. Philip delivered the final blow. Father believes your strength will one day take everything from him, just as he once took everything from others. Philip turned with a cold, calculating smile, dismissing the old man's complaints as utter absurdity. With a sharp gesture, he ordered a servant to bring the package. The servant obeyed instantly, presenting a heavy cloth sack. Yoan stared at the bundle, suspicion narrowing his eyes as he asked what was inside. The fabric fell away to reveal a surcoat, a gleaming longsword, and a spare breastplate. Philip's voice dropped, smooth and dangerous. He declared he was nothing like their father. He claimed he wasn't foolish enough to discard a useful weapon. Yoan watched him in silence, reading between the lines. Philip then made his offer. He promised to appoint Yoan as captain of the guard the moment he became lord. All he asked was for Yoan to train hard and stop causing trouble. Yoan shouted back that he wasn't the one starting the trouble, but Philip simply walked away, leaving the young man alone on the windswept hill. Yoan looked down at the breastplate, and his blood ran cold. It was the exact same armor from his nightmare, the armor of his death. He wondered if wearing it would seal his fate, dooming him to die just as he had in the dream. But a fire ignited in his chest. He felt he could crush that destiny. Proof or not, he would forge his own path. Yoan decided he needed this gear to survive the coming storm. He strapped on the heavy breastplate and cloak. As he adjusted the equipment, the sun died behind the horizon. Somewhere in the distance, a chilling laugh echoed through the twilight. Meanwhile, the local tavern was rowdy. A man slammed his hand on the table, swearing he was telling the truth, while others accused him of lying. He recounted how Sir Yoan had slaughtered the wolves and drawn his blade solely to save Dell and Joseph. He called Yoan the true model of a knight. The patrons murmured in agreement, declaring Yoan far nobler than Lord Gaze. But in the shadows, a hooded figure sat silently, listening to every word. One villager spat on the floor, growling that Yoan should have just cut off Gaze's head right then and there. Suddenly, the tavern door swung open. Joseph burst in, announcing that drinks were on him. The hooded figure watched, intrigued. Joseph raised his tankard high, proposing a toast to Sir Yoan. The crowd cheered for the savior of Dell. One man turned to the mysterious stranger in the corner, asking who he was. As his face was unknown in these parts, the hooded figure merely pointed out their boldness. They were bad-mouthing the Lord in front of a complete stranger. The villager stared, unnerved. The stranger chuckled darkly, commenting that the locals here seemed to fear nothing. His aura shifted, becoming heavy and suffocating. He found their story fascinating. His voice dropped to a menacing whisper as he demanded they tell him more about this Yoan. Terror seized the room. Far away, Yoan patrolled the village under the moonlight. He smiled, daydreaming about Philip's promise. He could already see himself as captain of the guard. He believed his golden path had finally arrived. Suddenly, Yoan stopped. His instincts flared. He looked to the side of the road. A drunken man sat slumped on the ground. Yoan straightened up. As the future captain, he could not ignore a citizen in need. He approached with a friendly smile, offering to walk the man home before the cold set in. But the moment he got close, the atmosphere shattered. Something icy pressed against his neck. A dagger dug into his throat. Yoan froze, his eyes widening as he tried to process the sudden violence. Was this an assassin sent by gaze? He dismissed the thought. Perhaps the stepmother or even Philip. His mind raced, but he couldn't pinpoint the enemy. Yoan choked out a question, asking what the attacker wanted. Assuming it was a robbery, he offered every coin he had in exchange for his life. But the hooded man scoffed. He claimed to have more gold than he could ever spend. Then he whispered Yoan's name, sending a shiver down the boy's spine. The assassin issued a terrifying ultimatum. He would ask one question. If the answer did not please him, Yoan's throat would be slit right there. Yoan's heart hammered against his ribs. A single wrong word meant death. He forced himself to breathe, composing his mind to deliver the perfect response. The man announced that the interrogation had begun. Yoan steeled himself. The hooded figure looked him up and down, mocking his physique. He asked if Yoan was truly the son of Lord Gaze. Yoan was taken aback. With his life hanging by a thread, he ground his teeth, searching for the right words. Finally, Yoan looked him in the eye. He declared that sometimes a magnificent lion can be born from the lineage of a filthy pig. The hooded figure remained silent. The air grew heavy. Yoan sweated, wondering if he had signed his own death warrant. Then the hood moved. The stranger exploded into manic laughter. He stated the answer pleased him greatly. But when Yoan asked to be released, the man refused. The figure declared that Yoan now belonged to him. Yoan couldn't understand the madness. This man was Kegel, the Empire's greatest assassin. He was the poison serpent of the Narcissus Guild, a living legend who had perfected his swordsmanship through countless slaughters. But Kegel had a fatal problem. He could not find a successor worthy of inheriting his deadly techniques. He had searched the entire continent in vain. He found only disappointment. Most were incapable. A few showed potential, but crumbled under his brutal testing. One candidate even refused to learn the assassin's arts, preferring death over staining his honor. Kegel had granted that wish without hesitation. Over 30 heirs of noble families had died at his hands during this twisted search. His patience was wearing thin. Desperate, he had visited the Empire's witch. A voice from the shadows had called him the poison serpent, the granter of peaceful deaths. The witch revealed a prophecy. The disciple he sought resided in the Yates estate. One of the Lord's sons. Kegel had been skeptical. He questioned if a true successor could exist in such a forgotten backwater. The witch offered a full refund if the prophecy proved false. He accepted the deal, deciding to trust her one last time. Kegel knew he was running out of time to pass on his legacy. Yet doubt plagued him as he infiltrated the estate. Looking up at the castle, he made a dark vow. If the boy failed him, he would kill him tonight. Back in the present, the man drops a bombshell. He introduces himself as Kegel, the master of the notorious Nassos Guild. He offers Yoan a destiny that will change everything. He can become Kegel's successor, but the choice is brutal. Either die by his blade right here, or inherit his lethal swordsmanship. Those are the only two paths forward. Yoan stands there, completely speechless at the ultimatum. Suddenly, he shouts, demanding to know the price of such training. Kegel replies calmly that he wants no money. The answer shocks the boy to his core. A legendary guild master teaching him for free? Yoan grabs Kegel in pure excitement. He cries out that he has waited his entire life for a savior like him. But Kegel cuts the celebration short. He reminds the boy that his swordsmanship is not for knights. It is the dark art of an assassin. Learning this technique will mark him as a disgrace to any noble family forever. Yoan screams back instantly. He does not care about empty honor or shame. He just begs to be taught. Kegel smirks, agreeing to the deal. He notes that he has never met a brat quite like this before. Yoan immediately bows, addressing him as master with zero hesitation. Then, the boy shamelessly asks for an allowance. Since Kegel is rich, he should share the wealth. The master stares blankly, realizing this kid is truly unbelievable. The scene shifts to its family castle. Lord Gayan, mounted high on his warhorse, announces the inspection is over and prepares to leave. Philip bids him farewell, promising to guard the fortress. Suddenly, Madamitz declares that no matter how hard Philip fights, the castle belongs to her. Philip sneers, calling her foolish. He claims his birthright as the next lord of the domain. Gayan turns away in disgust, sick of their petty squabbles. They can do whatever they want. Inside the castle walls, Philip reports to his father that Yoan has not returned. He asks for orders on how to proceed. Yoan looks down coldly, commanding him not to waste time on that worthless brat. If Yoan dies, it is none of their concern. Philip apologizes to his father, submissive as always. But as he turns away, he cannot help but wonder, where is Yoan, and what is he plotting? Meanwhile, deep in the forest near the castle, Kegel prepares to verify Yoan's potential. He needs to see what the boy can do. Yoan asks to borrow a weapon, admitting he breaks them far too often. Kegel tosses him a blade, watching the boy closely. He finds the kid reckless and dislikes his vibe entirely. Drawing his own sword, Kegel considers simply killing him right there. He asks if the boy is ready to face death. Yoan grips the steel, confirming he is ready. Master and apprentice face off in the silent woods. Kegel critiques Yoan's stance, deciding this boy might really need to die today. Yoan asks if he must use formal swordsmanship or if he can fight wild. Kegel shrugs, telling him to do as he prefers. He authorizes the boy to use anything to survive, fists, stones, or blades. Yoan tightens his grip. He unleashes an overwhelming explosion of power. Kegel watches as debris shatters in the air around them. In that split second, he understands everything. His doubts were completely unfounded. Kegel's eyes widen in shock at the revelation. This boy is monstrously strong. Yoan charges with a punch that generates immense air pressure, catching the master off guard. Kegel realizes that if that hit lands, his internal organs will be crushed instantly. He is not fighting a human, he is facing a lion. Later, Kegel's hand rests on his hilt, the atmosphere tense. The scene explodes into an intense duel where the master moves with terrifying speed. Yoan frantically tries to read the pattern. He is unsure if the killing blow will come from above or below. Suddenly, the master's blade slams squarely into his face. Yoan hits the dirt hard, knocked down by the heavy impact. Kegel steps back, watching him lie there. He notes he only used the flat of the blade, yet the boy is still conscious. What a ridiculous monster. The master claims that if Yoan had been born 1,000 years ago, he would be hailed as a legendary hero. Yoan thanks him, but Kegel interrupts with a dark truth. There is a critical weakness. At this rate, Yoan will die no matter what. Lying in the dirt, Yoan asks what he means. Kegel explains that Yoan cannot control his own strength, and that lack of restraint will destroy him. Yoan argues he is not attacking himself. Kegel prepares the next lesson, challenging the boy to strike again if he is so confident. He proposes a wager. If Yoan can break Kegel's sword instead of his own, he wins a pile of gold. The youth charges, screaming for him to keep that promise. He strikes with every ounce of his might. The blades clash like thunder, but Yoan's sword shatters into dust. The massive recoil sends him flying backward. Yoan realizes this feeling is exactly like the fight against his father. The physics are undeniable. Kegel asks if he understands now. He lost to his own unbridled strength. He must learn control, or he will perish. Yoan pulls a shard from his clothes, realizing the lesson. He nods, his resolve hardening. He will master this power to survive. After all, he is the future captain of the Guard. His master explains that by condensing power, miracles are possible. Then, Kegel attacks with just his scabbard to demonstrate. The wooden sheath slices through Yoan's metal armor like paper. Yoan freezes, utterly perplexed. He realizes his heavy defense was breached by a blunt object. The master smiles, asking if he saw clearly. With perfect control, it is possible to cut anything, even without a blade. Kegel admits he cannot even imagine how powerful Yoan will become once he masters this art. Yoan listens, hanging on every word. Kegel declares that the real training begins now. He warns it will be hell on earth, and Yoan might actually die this time. He asks if he is ready. My youth is just beginning. With a radiant smile, Yoan shouts his determination to the heavens. The scene shifts, revealing a humble village shadowed by a looming castle in the distance. Yoan strides through the bustling village streets. Though his battered face tells a story of brutal training, he reflects on his progress. He's finally learned the art of restraint. But restraint isn't enough. He wonders, when will he grasp the essence of true swordsmanship? Suddenly, a commotion breaks his focus. Yan turns, his senses on high alert. A squad of soldiers marches in elves, by the look of them. Yan steps forward, curiosity piqued, and questions the approaching group. Who are you people? But the response is cold. Restricted area. Leave. Now. Yan stands his ground, pointing a finger at the elf. And who exactly gives you the right to order me around? The soldier sneers. You dare question us, boy? He puffs out his chest. We are the wolves of Akaten, the Empire's elite mercenaries. Yan's eyes light up. Mercenaries. That means money. How much do you guys make? Two soldiers respond, smugly. To gold coins for a single job. To gold coins. That dwarfs a guard captain's yearly salary. One elf smirks, tapping his weapon. In our world, skill is the only currency that matters. Yan nods in agreement. Yan's mind races. He's never even held a gold coin. Maybe a career change is in order. But as they chat, the air suddenly grows heavy. A shadow falls over him. An imposing figure approaches from the rear. A warrior clad in full plate armor. The pressure is instant. Yan feels a mountain-like weight crushing down on him. Pure instinct takes over. His hand flies to his hilt, ready to draw. But he freezes. Cold sweat drenches his back. Why did his body just react with such lethal intent? Steel flashes, and elf levels his blade at Yan's throat. Insolent brat. You dare draw a weapon before the legendary Sir Karamov? The armored giant raises a hand, silencing his subordinate. It is fine. His voice is calm, yet it commands absolute obedience. Mounted on his warhorse, the knight peers down. Who are you, boy? Yan hesitates, surrounded by a forest of hostile blades. Finally, he speaks. I am Yan, of House Yates. The warrior reaches up and removes his helm. The face of a legend is revealed. This is Karamov, Imperial Guard Knight of the Holy Empire. Yan trembles. He realizes now why his hand moved on its own. It wasn't aggression, it was fear. He has never felt terror like this. Not against the Black Wolf. Not even when his own father tried to kill him. This killing intent is absolute. It suffocates the soul. He feels like a rabbit frozen before a starving dragon. Karamov's eyes bore into him. Move aside. The command carries the weight of a decree. His legs feel like lead, paralyzed by the pressure. Finally, Yan forces them to obey and steps aside. The elves snicker at his pale face. Look at him shake. As they march past, one elf whispers a chilling warning. Watch yourself, kid. If they're even asterisk is asterisk next time. Later that night, under the cover of darkness, a subordinate speaks up. Jane here. Sir Karamov, was it wise to just leave him be? Karamov's eyes narrow. I want no trouble on a day like this. Not yet. From the shadows, Yan watches the group breach the castle gates alone. Why is an emperor's knight here? Panic spreads through the castle halls. Hearing that Sir Karamov has arrived, Philip Yates sprints, breathless. Why has such a titan of the empire descended upon them? He bursts into the hall, chest heaving. I am Philip, the future lord of House Yates. He tries to hide his nervousness. To what do we owe this honor? Suddenly, Madame Yates cuts in, voice dripping with honey. She heaps praise upon Karamov before shoving her own child forward. This is John, the asterisk true asterisk future lord. She fawns over the knight shamelessly. If I'd known men like you existed, I never would have married so early. She gestures grandly. Please, enter our home. Karamov doesn't even blink. He walks right past her like she's a ghost. The madam calls out in vain as he slams his helm onto a table. The knight claims the lord's throne without hesitation. Where is Jerson? He demands. The Yates family stands below, stunned by his audacity. Philip steps forward, outraged. You cannot address Lord Jerson so rudely. But Madame Yates hisses at him. Fool, he is the Empire's sword. He does as he pleases. Philip clenches his fists until his knuckles turn white. He knows her game. She's using this chaos to elevate her own son to the lordship. Slam! Karamov strikes his sword hilt against the throne. Silence. The room shakes. Everyone out. And bring me alcohol. Gripping his weapon, his voice drops to a growl. I will wait right here for Gerson's arrival. Meanwhile, under the moonlight, Yan continues his grueling training. Clang! He blocks a strike. but his mind wanders to the intruder in the castle. Master Kegel roars, "Focus!" Daggers fly through the air, aiming for blood. Yoan twists his body, barely dodging death. A blade whistles past, leaving a thin line of crimson on his neck. Kegel's voice is cold steel. "If that blade were poisoned, you'd be a corpse." He glares at his student. "Why is your mind elsewhere?" Yoan pants, wiping sweat from his brow. "The Emperor's knights. They're here." His grip tightens. "Something feels wrong, Master. This is Yates' family territory. They locked down the gates, like they own the place." Kegel shrugs, unimpressed. "Suspicious or not, what can a boy like you do?" Yoan describes the monster he saw. Karamov, the direct knight, the strongest on the continent. Even the armor radiated legendary power. Yoan looks his master in the eye. "Is he stronger than you?" Silence hangs heavy in the air. Kegel looks away before speaking. "If I faced Karamov," Kegel admits softly, "I would run without looking back." Then he snaps, cutting himself off. "Enough, be quiet. You idiot, know your place," Kegel yells. "You can't even control your own overflowing strength yet." Yoan closes his eyes, centering his breathing. He opens them, burning with resolve. "I will do it." Kegel sighs, readying his stance. "Come then." They collide, a blur of motion in the night. *thwack, Kegel's scabbard slams into Yoan's ribs. Yoan ignores the pain, screaming, "Continue." He is beaten back, bruised and battered, but his spirit remains unbroken. Again, Yoan screams. Kegel grins ferociously. "Come on then." Yoan pushes his body to the limit, but frustration boils over. Why isn't it working? He thinks desperately. Why can't I even cut a simple scabbard? Yoan recalled the fundamental lesson on the flow of force. Mere swinging was useless. He needed to condense his entire aura right at the blade's tip. As the weapon danced through the air, the true meaning of strength control clicked. Kegel's eyes narrowed as the dull whoosh of the sword sharpened into a lethal hiss. Steel met scabbard in a thunderous collision. In that fraction of a second, a realization struck Yoan like lightning. If he fused every lesson he had learned with the perfect distribution of aura, he could break through. The path to victory was clear. Kegel's instinct screamed the next blow would be fatal. He launched a precision counterattack, his blade slicing the air with terrifying speed. But Yoan was faster. His blade sheared the tip right off Kegel's scabbard. The boy erupted in excitement, shouting that he had finally conquered the technique. Yoan claimed he grasped the essence, boasting it was actually quite simple. Kegel watched in silence, convinced it was nothing more than a fluke of beginner's luck. The master called his name, his voice grave. Kegel drew his real blade, his killing intent flaring as he warned that the time for holding back was over. Yoan charged, channeling his full power. The impact was devastating, blasting Kegel backward off his feet. Yoan cheered, celebrating yet another impossible win. Kegel stared in disbelief. What kind of monster was this child? Yoan had just executed the serpent's tongue, a secret sword art he should not know. He was only meant to learn force control. Yet he had perfectly copied the technique after seeing it just once on their first day. It was terrifying. The boy wasn't just imitating it. He was executing the technique with more perfection than the master himself. Kegel fell silent. His decades of experience as an assassin whispered a hard truth. Unless a miracle occurred, Yoan had already evolved into an entity he could not defeat. As the leader of Nassos Poison, the Empire's deadliest assassin guild, Kegel could only mutter in awe. He called the boy an absurdity while Yoan reveled in his new power. That night, the atmosphere shifted. Kegel announced that the training was complete. He would depart at dawn. Yoan protested, but his master remained firm, declaring that the boy already possessed every tool necessary to survive. Kegel admitted the impossible reality. In less than a single week, the student had surpassed the teacher in raw strength. Satisfied that his sword arts would not fade from history, Kegel advised Yoan to live freely. The boy had worked harder than anyone to reach this height. By the flickering campfire, Yoan asked why he had to leave. Kegel simply replied it was his way. The conversation then turned dark as Yoan asked about the Black Wolf. Kegel confirmed it was a harbinger of doom. Yoan confessed he had encountered the Black Wolf recently. He had dreamed of his own decapitation and feared his master was the executioner. Kaggle scoffed, noting that if he had killed the boy, the omen would have been fulfilled. But misfortune has no fixed form. Before parting ways, the old assassin offered a final piece of guidance. First, Yoan needed a weapon worthy of his strength. Only a blade forged from Dana steel could hope to withstand his overflowing power. It was a legendary metal imbued with ancient magic, its forging method lost to time. Found only in ancient ruins, weapons of this caliber were vanishingly rare. Yoan asked why he would suggest something so impossibly expensive if he couldn't afford it. Kaggle replied it was knowledge for the future. Then his tone turned ice cold. If Yoan ever saw an enemy wielding Dana steel, he must flee immediately. He warned that those who do not understand their own limits are destined for a short life. Yoan etched the warning into his memory. The master stood up, signaling the end. Yoan asked if this was truly goodbye. Kaggle left him with the assassin's creed: never fight a losing battle, and use any method necessary to kill. Follow this, and death might just pass him by. His final command was simple: do not die. Yoan watched his master's silhouette fade into the dark forest, replaying the lessons on survival. Flee or kill, survive at all costs. Yoan vowed to the darkness that he would never forget those words. Meanwhile, at the castle, Madamites poured a drink for their guest, Karamov. He took one sip and spat, calling it rotten urine. He ordered the filth removed. With a flick of her fan, the madam shattered the bottle. Her smile tight, she noted his expensive taste, mentioning that the only superior vintage was kept in Lord Gazen's private chambers. Seeing his agitation, she suggested he rest in Lord Gazen's quarters, promising him the comfort he deserved after his journey. She hinted they could pass the time together pleasantly. Karamov simply stared at her, ordering her to vanish from his sight. Madamites persisted, warning that Lord Gazen would be late, and their time alone was fleeting. Karamov's expression twisted. He was sick of the chatter. He decided he would have his fun after all. A blood-curdling scream tore through the room. Karamov hoisted the woman by her throat, introducing her to his favorite entertainment, massacre. Hidden behind the door, Philip peeked through a crack, trembling in terror. While the boy watched the horror unfold, Yoan crested a distant hill. He froze, his eyes widening at the nightmare on the horizon. The village and the castle were engulfed in an inferno. Elsewhere, Lord Gazen saw the black plumes rising from his estate. A subordinate warned that the fire was spreading fast. Gazen kicked his horse into a frenzy, galloping toward the destruction. He arrived at the gates, where the guards mocked his tardiness, sneering that Sir Karamov was not a patient man. Gazen rushed into the courtyard, but stopped dead in his tracks. The scene before him was a slaughterhouse. The ground was carpeted with the corpses of his loyal men and servants, their lifeless eyes staring blankly at the sky. Across the scarred earth, he looks up, his gaze locking onto the figure ahead. Heavy armor clanks as Sir Karamov steps forward to greet him. The villain claims he is late, but Duke Gessen is not here for pleasantries. His hand grips his axe handle as he demands answers. Steel sings as Gessen draws his weapon. What is the meaning of this? Karamov sneers, accusing him of high treason and attempting to assassinate the emperor. The decree is absolute. The entire house will be eradicated this very day. Gessen roars back that this is a purge. They are fabricating lies just to execute him. Fury burns in his eyes. He advances on Karamov, swearing he won't let him do as he pleases. Sir Karamov simply waves his hand. Sound the trumpet. Recover the family seal and purge every living soul in the territory. A soldier raises the brass horn to his lips. The chilling sound echoes. The final order has been given to wipe this land off the map. The Imperial army advances, a tide of death shouting for blood. Amidst the burning village, a soldier corners an injured man. The villager kneels on the ash-covered ground. You cruel bastard. The soldier laughs, asking if it's so hard to reveal where the pig's son is. He decides to send the man to his god. The blade falls. But suddenly, Yoan appears like a phantom to block the blow. With a flash of steel, the young master cuts the soldier down. Blood sprays into the air. The villager looks up, awe striking his face as he recognizes his savior. Lord Yoan. Yoan pulls him from the dirt, his eyes scanning the chaos. What is happening here? The man trembles, Imperial troops are butchering everyone they see. Father Valberg steps in, his voice grave. Lord Gessen may already be dead. The news hits Yoan like a physical blow. Father Valberg continues. They are burning the village to exterminate everything that breathes. Realization dawns on the youth. He must return to the castle immediately. Suddenly, a familiar voice cries out from the smoke. He rushes toward the sound as Valberg shouts his name. On the floor, he finds little Dell. Is it really her? He tells the trembling child she is safe. He pulls her close, but a sudden chill runs down his spine. Danger is imminent. Dell points a shaking finger behind him, stuttering about her father. He was hit. Yoan turns to look. The father who once protected his daughter with a smile now lies cold on the ground. Lifeless, Yoan looks around, horror gripping his heart. The bodies of villagers are scattered everywhere. The men he once drank and laughed with are gone, slaughtered. He grits his teeth in pure rage. Dell clings tightly to his cape. Yoan speaks softly but firmly. It is too dangerous to be alone. Stay with Father Valberg. The girl nods through her tears, and he turns toward the flames. Valberg grabs Dell, screaming for the young lord to stop. You must not go. You need to flee. Yoan freezes upon hearing his name. His eyes are drawn upward. High on an imperial standard, a severed head is impaled on a spike. It is his father, Duke Gessen. A wooden sign hangs below. It proclaims Duke Gessen was executed for treason against the emperor. It warns that anyone who claims the body will suffer the same fate. Signed by the traitor, Karamov. A nearby soldier spots him. A cruel grin spreads across his face. Is that not the bastard's son? He mocks Yoan, thinking he had fled like a coward. Did you come back just to die? Yoan's answer is the sound of drawing steel. With a lightning-fast movement, he severs the standard pole. The banner falls and is trampled into the mud. The soldier screams at his squad. Don't just stand there. Kill him now. Yoan stares at them with dead eyes. Then he unleashes hell. He advances, cutting down the soldiers one by one until the last man falls. Yoan stands alone amidst the ruins of his home. Conflicting thoughts race through his mind. Why is he doing this? Why return to the castle? He remembers Father Valberg's warning. He should be running. Returning to face Karamov means dying for nothing. Suddenly, a weak voice calls his name. Among the pile of bodies, he finds the knight Philippus, wounded and bleeding. Philip looks at him with shock. You are alive. But why did you come back? You must leave. If you stay, death is certain. Philip trembling hands remove his helm. He wanted to give this to Yoan when he became lord. Yoan holds the helm, the metal cold against his palms. He grits his teeth. A memory of his master surfaces. Understand the difference in skill. If the danger is too great, run. That was the lesson. Even knowing the opponent is an emperor's knight, Yoan makes his choice. He remembers his master's other teaching. If you must fight, you must kill. Yoan puts on the helm. The time is now. He stands up, a warrior born anew. The youth strides through the castle gates. He faces a group of imperial soldiers. Panic sets in. How did he get in? Where are the guards? Yoan clenches his fist, his voice booming like thunder. Karamov, come out, you bastard. He steps firmly on the stone floor, immovable in full armor. Blood drips rhythmically from his sword. Sir Karamov finally appears on the balcony. So, the fugitive son survives. He recognizes the man who stood before the castle gates. Yoan cuts him off. I am not here to trade names. Just think of me as a man consumed by rage. Karamov sneers. You should have kept running to live. It seems you place no value on your life. The villain draws his sword, accepting the challenge. Very well. If you are so eager to die, come and get it. Words are wasted breath. His actions will speak the only language Karamov understands. Yen charges, his blade clashing. Against the tyrant's steel amidst the roaring inferno. Metal screams against metal as they lock weapons. Yen attempts a lightning-fast side strike, but Karamov walls off the attack with brute force. The blades grind together, sparks flying, until Karamov disarms him with a devastating blow. Yan's sword spins away into the darkness, forcing him to leap back. He lands, instantly resetting his stance. Karamov grins. Now this is Fun! Suddenly, Yan's weapon shatters, exploding into countless shards. Yet, the razor-sharp fragments defy gravity. Floating ominously around him, Yan locks eyes on the suspended steel. Karamov ignores the phenomenon and lunges. His sword descending in a catastrophic arc. A solid stone pillar is sheared cleanly in half behind him. Karamov finds this resistance exhilarating. He scoffs, noting that Yan possesses power far beyond what Brits ever held. Spotting one of his own cowering soldiers, Karamov's bloodlust spikes. He rips the man's head from his shoulders and hurls it aside, roaring that this is true entertainment. He demands that the bastard's son entertain him further. Yan recovers instantly, parrying the next strike. The impact is so heavy it cracks Karamov's impenetrable armor. Seizing the opening, Yan counters. His blade slices through defenses and cuts Karamov's arm. The giant stumbles back a few steps, stunned. The two warriors stare each other down across the burning hall. Karamov glances at his bleeding arm, unable to comprehend how a mere boy cut his Donnie's steel armor. He stares at the gash on his gauntlet. Yan's grip tightens on his hilt, knuckles white. Karamov knows it should be impossible for a human to breach Donnie's steel. He questions what kind of monster stands before him. The youth raises his sword. Once more, steel meets steel with a thunderous boom. Karamov is rattled by the boy's raw power, but Yan presses the advantage with a relentless downward strike. Karamov blocks, the ground cracking beneath them. He retaliates with a bone-crushing blow. The general judges. The boy is a savage, a brute swinging a sword with zero technique. He prepares to punish this amateurish style. He deflects Yan's strike effortlessly. Karamov lunges with a lethal thrust. Yan barely dodges, realizing he cannot defend against such refined martial arts. Karamov sneers, realizing Yan fights on pure animal instinct, and wonders if Master Gayan ever actually taught him to fight. Recognizing the danger, Karamov decides to stop playing and end this battle. Immediately, he readies himself for Yan's wide swing. Karamov parries, expecting a deflection, but Yan's blade digs deep, grinding against his own. With both hands, Yan drives the blade forward, overpowering the lock. But Karamov manages to shove the blow aside. The youth dares him to strike, promising that Karamov's head will be the next thing to roll. Suddenly, the general senses a shift in Yan's aura. Yan catches Karamov's blade with his bare hands. A phantom serpent manifests from his arm, coiling with deadly intent. He slams a direct punch into Karamov's face. The shockwave sends the giant flying backward. The impact pulverizes part of his helmet and armor. Karamov coughs up a mouthful of blood. His sword clatters to the stone floor. He staggers back, clutching his jaw. Realization dawns. He recognizes the technique as Kegel's legendary assassination arts. Yan had been hiding his true power all along. Karamov's eyes widen in shock. He curses his own arrogance for lowering his guard. He hunches over, blood pouring from his mouth, forming a crimson puddle on the stones. He forces himself upright to face his executioner. Yan watches him with cold eyes. The youth removes his helm and simply asks why. Why all this bloodshed? Karamov gasps. Everything was for His Imperial Majesty. He explains the empire is crumbling. His Majesty drew the imperial sword to restore order. He speaks of the legendary blade, Mavara. Karamov leans heavily on his sword, coughing violently while Yan stands like a statue before him. Suddenly, the general bursts into laughter, declaring he is moved by Yan's might. He admits that in decades of war, he has never met a warrior this strong. Karamov extends an offer. Come with him to the Empire. He claims His Majesty needs a monster of this caliber. He promises infinite gold, eternal glory, and vast lands to rule. The Emperor himself would knight him. He urges Yan to become the Emperor's blade. Yan stands silent, the promise of infinite wealth hanging in the air. He turns his gaze away. He looks up, whispering that once, that was the life he dreamed of. But now, he feels nothing. He cold, refuses. Karamov blinks, confused. Yan confronts him for slaughtering his family and the innocent servants who did nothing wrong. Karamov repeats the word servants with disgust. asking if he is rejecting an empire for the sake of peasants. Yen grinds his teeth in fury. Karamov screams, asking who cares if insects die. He bellows that the strong drink the blood of the weak, that is the only law that matters. Yen stands silent, his aura darkening. He clenches his fist, whispering an apology to his master for losing control. The youth explodes forward and drives a fist into the general's face. The impact snaps Karamov's head back. Yen doesn't stop. He attacks. Again, screaming for the emperor, a second punch crunches against the side of Karamov's skull. He continues the brutal assault, roaring about worthless lives. Karamov's eye reflects the fist of judgment hurtling toward him. Yen screams, asking what makes him think he is a god. He demands to know who gave him the right to decide who lives and dies. Yen delivers the final. A devastating punch connects with Karamov's face. His eyes widen in shock as the heavy blow lands home. Blood sprays violently into the air. His hand twitches uncontrollably. As he collapses to the floor, Yen slowly lowers his blood-soaked fist. He stands silently over Karamov's broken form, then turns his back to walk away. But Karamov calls out, branding him a fool. He hisses that Yen should have taken the offer. For now, it is far too late. The one who shattered the emperor's sword will know nothing but eternal suffering from this day forth. Yen stares down coldly as Karamov's finger falls lifeless. His body begins to dissolve into particles of light. Yen reflects that to survive in a world that embraces death, his only god was money. But now, rage tightens his fist. Everyone in his territory was massacred. His family, his neighbors all slaughtered and burned to ash. Even if the entire world turns against him, he does not care. He walks among the corpses, knowing he only did what was necessary. He will never regret this path, no matter the judgment of others. This is simply how he must live now. The massive fortress gates groan open. Beneath the dark night sky, a guard clears the way as Jane and her elite retinue of elves march. Into the courtyard, she turns sharply to a wounded soldier, demanding one final confirmation of his report. The soldier swears on his life that there is no lie in his words, begging her to believe the impossible. He recounts how a single man breached their defenses and battered every soldier. Then with his bare hands ripped the head from Sir Karamov. The soldier whispers that was the last moment anyone saw the knight alive. Jane scans the bodies scattered across the ground. She asks coldly why Karamov's corpse is missing. How can she believe such a ludicrous story without proof? The soldier stammers that he doesn't understand that part either. But he witnessed the carnage with his own eyes. Another elf approaches, reporting to Master Jane that the pursuit squad is assembled. She confirms she will join them immediately. Jane stalks across the courtyard, radiating killing intent. She stands before her troops and issues the command, "Hunt him down. Kill him." Jane announces the target's name is Yanetz. Yen sprints through the forest as the sun bleeds below the horizon. Jane's voice echoes in his mind, accusing him of being a traitor to his bloodline and the prime suspect in Sir Karamov's murder. The young man tears through the woods, the weight of Philip's body heavy on his shoulders. Jane shouts for her men to track him, kill him if they must, but bring him back. Soldiers begin to surround him in the suffocating darkness of the forest. An elf falls to Yan's blade. Yan carves a bloody path through the troops. The commander warns his men that this target can rip through Dana's steel like paper. Do not face him alone. Treat this like a dragon hunt. She orders every road in the territory sealed to pursue him relentlessly, until his spirit breaks. Her soldiers reel at the news of Sir Karamov's death. Jane maintains her steely gaze. She declares that they must bring that bastard's head to Her Majesty at all costs. A memory surfaces, a wounded Philip clutching him, telling him to listen closely. He instructs Yen to go to the stable, steal a war horse, and flee. He insists that Yen must survive, no matter the price. Still, carrying Philip's corpse, Yen reaches the stable, gasping for breath. He thinks this might be the end. He glances over his shoulder, adrenaline pumping. Hiding Karamov's body didn't create the chaos he hoped for. The pursuit group moved far faster than he anticipated. He decides to keep carrying Philip, planning to use the armor as a human shield until he can shake them off. He struggles to stand, forcing his exhausted body to move. He throws open the stable door. Inside, he recognizes Gan's massive warhorse. Yoan thanks his fallen brother. He strokes the beast's mane, whispering that with its strength, he might just catch a moment of rest. He decides to give the animal a name. The horse stares at him with intelligent eyes. He names it Philip. Suddenly, an elf soldier shouts. He saw the glint of Dana's steel and orders a sweep of the area. He asserts the bastard is definitely nearby. A guard claims to hear heavy hoof beats. Yoan bursts from the forest cover, on horseback, shocking the soldiers. He clings tightly to the body in his arms as he charges through their lines. A soldier identifies him as Yoan and screams that the target is escaping on a mount. He rides rapidly into the consuming darkness of the forest. The elf commander orders his men to bring the horse down. Do not let him escape. Soldiers unleash a volley of crossbow bolts. Arrows strike the armor of the corpse Yoan uses as a shield. He disappears like a ghost among the moonlit trees. Yoan rode through the night, quickly losing the pursuit group behind him. He finally reaches the depths of the black forest. He stops, admitting that even though Philip was a twisted man, leaving him unburied feels wrong. Yoan looks back at the corpse. He notes Philip's armor, commenting that it looks incredibly expensive. He takes the sword from the dead man's grip. Yoan examines the weapon, realizing the blade is light, solid, and forged of rare Dana steel. He unsheathes it, eyes tracing the inscriptions. He recognizes the ancient imperial script that reads, "I am the one who reclaims crests." He repeats the name, Crest Reclaimer. He wonders if it refers to the power to reclaim family crests. Finding the name ominous, yet fitting, he decides to keep the sword and bury the armor. It is a waste, but he promises to return for it later. Carrying it will only slow him down. He begins digging a grave. He drives the shovel into the hard earth. After burying the body and the gear, he questions if this is enough. The image of Karamov, the Emperor's Knight, flashes in his mind. He knows that once the news spreads, the entire empire will hunt him, alongside Karamov's knights, who will seek blood revenge. Her threat that he would only know suffering echoes in his thoughts. He reflects that his life was suffering long before he ever drew a sword. The deed was done. She was dead. With House of Knights reduced to ash and his pockets empty, Yoan stood at a crossroads of despair. He decided to rest, but peace was a luxury he couldn't afford. Suddenly, a sound pierced the silence. A low, menacing growl rumbled from the shadows. Yoan spun around, his heart pounding. Emerging from the abyss was a nightmare-made flesh, a colossal black wolf. He steeled himself to face the beast. The young knight stood trembling, his stamina completely drained. Of all times for a monster to appear, it had to be now. He knew the grim truth in this condition. He stood zero chance of victory. His grip on his sword wavered. His arms felt like lead. His only sliver of hope was to reach his mount and flee. But then, a shout shattered that hope. Someone had found his horse. Soldiers seized his war horse, declaring the fugitive must be near. Yoan's blood ran cold. He recognized the heraldry immediately. The relentless wolves of Akaton had finally caught up. An elf extended a finger toward Yoan's hiding spot, his sharp ears twitching. "I heard a breath from that direction," the scout announced. The noose was tightening. Dozens of crossbows leveled into the darkness. Yoan was trapped in a lethal pincer, a feral monster before him, and an execution squad behind. With no path to escape, Yoan wondered if this was where his story ended. But then, a blur of shadow. The wolf didn't strike him, it vaulted over him, launching itself straight at the elven soldiers. The black beast became a whirlwind of fang and claw, slaughtering the elves in an instant. Screams of agony echoed as the creature mauled a soldier. Yoan watched in stunned silence, confused. Why had the monster spared him? Then it clicked, the beast was carving a path through the enemy lines. This was his 1 in a million shot. If he didn't move now, he was a dead man. Adrenaline flooded his system. Yoan gritted his teeth, forcing his exhausted body into motion. He exploded forward, sprinting desperately toward his captured horse and vaulting into the saddle. He snapped the reins, and the war horse thundered away at breakneck speed. As the wind whipped past him, Fragments of his past began to flash before his eyes. He saw the old priest teaching him to write, the precious hours spent laughing with his brother. Yen rode on, fueled by the ghosts of his youth and the harsh discipline of his training. The sweet memories twisted into nightmares, the slaughter of his fellow villagers as he fled his homeland, and the final, crushing memory, his brother handing him this very helm moments before taking his last breath. He left the smoking ruins of Inight's village far behind him. Back at the carnage, the lifeless body of an elven soldier lay twisted in the dirt. The black wolf stood amidst the corpses, a silent guardian in the moonlight. The creature's golden eyes lingered on Yan's retreating figure until he disappeared into the horizon. Days later, the roads were crawling with patrols. Pillars of smoke choked the sky. Hiding in the brush, Yan realized with horror that his escape route had vanished. A heavily fortified checkpoint blocked the path completely. Yan slumped against his horse, the weight of the world crushing him. His reserves were empty. He hadn't eaten or slept since the escape began. For 3 relentless days, the soldiers of Akaton had hunted him like a dog. Yen had lost count of the skirmishes. He had danced with death a dozen times, barely surviving the group assaults sent to claim his head. He had reached his absolute limit. His muscles screamed in protest. He barely possessed the strength to lift his own blade. In the distance, more guards choked the only exit. The trap was shut. Crouched low in the foliage, he watched the soldiers patrol, looking for a miracle. Suddenly, fate intervened. A large merchant caravan, flanked by armed escorts, rolled onto the main road. A spark of inspiration ignited in Yan's mind. He wouldn't run, he would blend in. He would disguise himself as a merchant and use this caravan to slip through the checkpoint, unnoticed. Down at the caravan, a subordinate approached the leader, Sir Eldons of the Katana Trading Company. "What is it?" Eldons asked. Beside him, a mercenary pointed nervously down the road. Emerging from the dust was a lone, heavily armed rider. Khan, the mercenary captain, instantly tensed, prepare for combat. But Gamson, the rookie, scoffed. "Why are we shaking in our boots over a single night?" Goran glared at the fool. "Open your eyes, kid. Look closely. That's not just some wanderer. He's clad in full plate armor and riding a purebred warhorse. A heavy plate helm, a reinforced metal breastplate." Khan grabbed Gamson's head and forced him to focus. "And look at the steel hanging at his waist. That hilt, it's forged from Dana steel. A blade like that could slice through your cheap armor like it was paper." The young mercenary sneered. "So what? There are 9 of us. We can't lose." Annoyed, one of the veterans shoved him aside. "I can't think with your stupidity buzzing in my ear." Another mercenary smacked Gamson upside the head. "Shut your mouth. If you don't know death when you see it, keep quiet." Eldons took command. "Goran, Khan, ready the men. If he makes even the slightest suspicious move, we strike." "I will assess the situation first," the merchant declared. "Do not engage until I give the signal." The mercenaries nodded in confirmation. Eldons stepped down from his wagon, smoothing his clothes, and walked steadily toward the imposing knight. As the boss walked away, Khan whispered to his men, "The moment the fight starts, knock that bastard off his high horse, no mercy." The merchant bowed slightly. "I am Eldons of the Katana Company. Might I ask your name, traveler? We wish to avoid any misunderstandings." Beneath his helm, Yan's eyes widened. The merchant wasn't human, he was a catman. Meanwhile, Eldons kept one eye on his mercenaries, ensuring they were coiled to strike. Yan could feel the killing intent in the air. The distrust was palpable. I need to defuse this situation. He thought. I need to make this catman lower his guard. "I am Yan," he said, keeping his voice steady. "My rough appearance. I was hit by bandits. Please tell your men to stand down. I mean no harm." Eldons relaxed slightly, offering an apologetic smile. "My apologies. In this line of work, a merchant must always assume the worst to survive." "I understand completely," Yen replied. Then he cast the hook. "I lost everything in the attack. If you would allow me to travel with you, I only ask for a little food and a place to rest. In exchange, I offer my sword. I will help protect your caravan." Eldons calculated the value quickly. A high-level knight for the price of bread. Deal, the Catman nodded. We are bound for the city of Marcel. Get acquainted with the mercenaries, Eldon suggested. Yen bowed in thanks, though internally he frowned. Marcel? He had absolutely no idea where that was. Eldon strides away, his voice low and cold. He explains to his men that Yoan is merely a drifter, but his eyes betray a different order. Watch him like a hawk. If he makes one wrong move, do not hesitate to end his life. The mercenaries nod, gripping their weapons in confirmation. For Yoan, the real danger is just beginning. He must survive the upcoming checkpoint. The caravan rolls forward, wheels churning the dirt road. Suddenly, a shout pierces the air. One of the soldiers at the checkpoint alerts his squad of their approach. The notorious wolves of Akitan step forward, blocking the path. Halt, immediate inspection required. Yoan freezes. He has finally reached the obstacle he feared most. He prays to slip through unnoticed. But Eldon takes the lead, exuding confidence. He introduces himself, demanding to speak directly with the commander in charge. The guard pauses, recognizing the emblem of the Ketna Trading Company, the giants of Marcel. He offers a polite greeting, but stands his ground. He explains they are strictly following orders. They are hunting a fugitive trader, and no one is exempt. Yoan realizes the grim truth. This trap was set specifically for him. A soldier marches up to Yoan, barking a command. Take off the helmet, show your face. Yoan thinks fast, claiming a severe skin condition requires him to stay covered. The guards sneer, mocking his excuse. They insist he reveal himself instantly. The squad leader steps in, eyes narrowing with suspicion. What is this knight hiding? The air turns heavy with tension. The two men lock eyes in a silent duel. Yoan prepares for blood. His hand drifts to the hilt of his sword. The battle is about to begin. But before steel can clash, a thunderous voice interrupts. Eldon's is furious. How dare they suspect his company? He demands to see their commander this instant. He leans in, voice dripping with menace. Interfere further, and he will file a direct complaint with the captain. And he will do it personally at the Marcel branch. The threat hangs heavy in the air. The guard pales, his resolve crumbling. He yields immediately, ordering his men to stand down, clear the path. The soldiers grind their teeth, frustrated by their superior's cowardice. The squad leader glares at Yoan, muttering that he got lucky this time. The caravan rumbles past the checkpoint, leaving the danger behind. Yoan casts one final look over his shoulder. The soldiers stand like statues, watching them fade into the distance. Their eyes burn with suspicion. Dusk settles over the land. The mercenaries gather around the crackling campfire. A signing watch shifts. Inside his tent, Eldon studies a mysterious scroll. He steps out and dismisses Yoan. Since the wanderer has no duties, he should sleep. Yoan nods, thanking one of the men. A sleeping bag lands on the dirt. Yoan sits down, letting out a long breath. Finally, a moment of peace. Exhaustion drags him into a deep slumber beside the fire. But in the shadows, danger lurks. A figure watches the full moon through the twisted branches. Another assassin emerges from the dark vegetation. The order is given in a whisper. Get ready. The plan is brutal. Surround the camp by the hill and wipe them all out in a single strike. In the realm of dreams, Sergeant Kim Yoan returns to his past. He is back in uniform. During a grueling tactical simulation, he executes a flawless defense-in-depth strategy. Despite facing a superior enemy force, he dominates the battlefield. His tactical genius shines, becoming a legend among his peers. Battalion Commander Lieutenant Colonel Kimmy Bach presents him with a medal and a 5-day leave. The young sergeant salutes, pride swelling in his chest. He celebrates inwardly, thinking this life was made for him. But reality was a cruel teacher. The outdated hierarchy and crushing shifts broke his spirit. But the final straw, the abysmal pay, that was the moment he decided to desert. The dream twists into a nightmare. He is being dragged back to the base, screaming. Yoan gasps, jolting awake. Cold sweat drenches him. It was just a memory. He takes a shaky breath, trying to calm his racing heart. That dream ruined his rest, and his body screams in protest. He glances around. The moon still hangs high above the camp. Suddenly, the air whistles. A rain of death descends. Yoan's instincts scream. He braces for impact. With godlike reflexes, his hand snaps up. He catches an arrow mere inches from his face. The soldiers found him. Annoyance flares within him. They just won't give up. He leaps to his feet, knowing he must act. He roars at the top of his lungs. Enemy ambush, everyone up. Eldons and the mercenaries scramble, woken by the desperate warning. Time rewinds to 5 minutes prior. Khan was venting to Gamson, furious that they were breaking their backs while the new knight slept. He snaps at the rookie to shut his mouth. The leader explains the harsh truth. They cannot trust guard duty to a stranger. He might slit their throats and steal their supplies. He warns him grimly, "Stay reckless and you die young in this business." Khan turns to resume his patrol. Gamson mutters that he joined to live like a real man, but he spits out an insult. If he knew the Goran mercenaries were such cowards, he never would have signed up. Khan freezes. He spins around, eyes locking onto Gamson. "What did you just say?" The two mercenaries glare at each other, tension thick in the dark forest. Suddenly, a scream shatters the silence. Ambush, arrows fall like black rain. Khan doesn't hesitate. He tackles Gamson to the dirt, shielding the rookie with his own body. Steel tips thud into the earth around them. The barrage ceases. Khan lifts his head, eyes scanning the darkness. He barks an order to Gamson. "Go wake the others, now." But fear consumes the rookie. Gamson scrambles up and bolts in the opposite direction. Khan watches in disbelief as the boy flees. Then a voice calls out. Goran rushes over, relief washing over him to find Khan alive. But the nightmare has only just begun. The mercenary asks about Gamson's whereabouts, but the focus shifts instantly to Eldon's safety. He reports the merchant is cowering beneath the wagon like a frightened rat. They must prepare for blood. Yoan steps in, commanding them to form a defensive perimeter around the precious cargo. He explains they must fight as one unit. The direction of the attack is still a mystery, but Goran sneers at him, questioning his authority. "Do you think you're paying our wages?" Khan cuts in, telling Yoan they will handle their own. The young man should only worry about keeping his head attached to his neck. The knight is taken aback by their arrogance. Goran rallies the mercenaries, barking orders to raise shields and brace for impact. Yoan approaches Khan one last time. He states he is a veteran of such chaos and asks for a shield to join the line. Suddenly, Eldon denies the request cold-heartedly. "We have no shields to spare," he says. "Fend for yourself, boy." Yoan turns away. It is clear these mercenaries do not trust him. But then, his eyes go wide. The enemy is here. A massive horde of bandits spills from the forest darkness. Yoan analyzes them instantly. These aren't the elite wolves of a kitten, just common trash. Khan roars for all units to advance. A foolish move. The mercenaries charge blindly into the forest, leaving the defensive line. To engage the enemy on their terms. Left behind, Yoan sighs. Who exactly is going to protect the wagon now? Steel clashes against steel as the two sides collide violently. The bandit leader laughs, urging his men to swarm them. "Use your numbers. Crush them." Goran fights desperately, shouting for his comrades to hold the line. Retreat is not an option. But a bandit lands a devastating punch to Goran's face. Khan screams his captain's name in horror. The bandit raises a dagger over the fallen Goran. Death is 1 second away. Yoan clenches his fist. It is time to intervene. With a motion faster than the eye can track, he draws his blade. A thief turns, stunned by the sudden killing intent. Slash another nearby bandit. Freezes, confused by the shift in the air. From the ground, Goran watches the impossible unfold. In a blinding flash, Yoan cleaves one of the enemies in two. The bandit's blood sprays, running down the cold steel. Yoan notices the ancient runes on his weapon are drinking the blood greedily. One of the bandits screams in terror. "That guy. He has a demon sword. He can't be stopped." Yoan introduces himself as Yoan of House Yates. He demands to know who dares attack him. Khan and Goran are paralyzed with shock. Their drifter is a high noble. He had only slightly altered his name to hide his identity. The bandits begin to whisper in fear. They realize the gravity of their mistake. They have attacked a noble from a prominent house. This is a death sentence. Yoan demands an answer immediately. He points his blood-soaked blade at the leader. Will you surrender now, or do you prefer to meet your end by my hand? The noble's voice is ice cold. He warns them to choose wisely. The bandit leader breathes heavily, sweat pouring down his face. He offers no words. Then, the sound of metal hitting dirt. One thief drops his sword. Soon, the entire band follows suit. Hands raised in total defeat, the leader finally announces their surrender. Yoan sheathes his terrifying weapon. He turns to Goran, ordering him to bind the prisoners. If anyone resists, kill them. Goran approaches Sir Eldon, trembling slightly. He asks what their fate is now. He is terrified the noble will hold a grudge for their earlier disrespect. They treated a dragon like a common stray. But Eldon reassures him, I will handle the politics. The fact they let him travel with them counts as goodwill. The merchant approaches Yoan, wiping sweat from his brow. What a hellish night. He thanks the young lord for protecting the caravan. I do not know how I can ever repay this debt. Yoan places a calm hand on his shoulder. The safety of the group is all that matters. The beastman merchant is stunned that he isn't demanding a fortune in compensation. With that, the young noble steps away, but he pauses and turns back. Just one request, next time, lend me a shield. Eldon agrees immediately. You will be the first to get one, my lord. Yoan then outlines his plan to interrogate the prisoners. He asks for the mercenaries' assistance. Goran suggests a strategy. Now that his noble status is revealed, speaking formally will terrify the prisoners into submission. A mercenary shoves one of the captured thieves forward. He is forced to kneel in the dirt before Yoan. The noble approaches, his aura imposing. Who are you? Why did you attack us? The leader reveals a shocking truth. They are the private soldiers of the annihilated House Brits. Months ago, House Brits was purged on charges of treason against the Emperor. The ones responsible for massacring their home were the ruthless wolves of a kitten. They fought desperately to defend their land, but they were crushed and forced to retreat when the noble executioner joined the fray. A mercenary beside Yoan confirms the horror. It was likely Karamov, the Emperor's hunting dog. The bandit leader bows his head in shame. He apologizes for committing a capital offense. He explains the Imperial Army hunted them like animals. Even the Northerners branded them deserters. He knows banditry is a sin, but they had to do something to survive. Yoan narrows his eyes. Was there any other motive? The man shakes his head. We only attacked because the caravan looked wealthy. Eldon explodes with rage. Trading requires trust. He shouts. Yoan turns to a mercenary, preparing to pass judgment. He restrains Sir Eldon's with a firm grip, ordering the merchant to quell his rage while his own mind races. The realization hits Yoan like a physical blow. The treason against the Emperor was never real. Remembering Karamov's final words, the puzzle pieces snap into place with terrifying clarity. There was never any plot to overthrow the throne. It was all a fabrication, a calculated pretext for the Emperor to purge the nobility, using Karamov as a disposable pawn. A curse boils in Yoan's throat as he wishes the most agonizing death imaginable upon the tyrant on the throne. His gaze shifts to the bandits, and the anger softens into a grim understanding. These men are not so different from him, victims of the powerful, forced into the shadows to survive. They became monsters because the world gave them no other choice, and for a moment, the young noble hesitates. Captain Goran steps forward, his voice dripping with malice as he asks for orders. The mercenary offers to beat more secrets out of the captives, but Yoan shakes his head. Stand down. We already know everything that matters. Suddenly, chaos erupts. Gamson charges in like a madman, intent on beating one of the prisoners to a bloody pulp. But the tied-up bandit is no easy prey. Even bound, the prisoner blocks the young mercenary's strike with desperate skill. Before Gamson can retaliate, Goran steps in, snatching the weapon from his subordinate's hand with iron authority. Gamson whirls around, spitting fury, demanding to know why he is being held back. Goran stares him down, his eyes cold and unforgiving. You have no right to punish them, the captain growls. Especially not you, the coward who abandoned his comrades and fled when the fighting started. Gamson freezes, the shame silencing him instantly. Seeing an opening, the bandit leader throws himself at Yan's mercy, begging for their lives and swearing they will never walk the path of evil again. The other prisoners press their foreheads to the dirt, trembling in absolute terror. Goran draws a finger across his throat, offering to execute the filth right here and now. Yan grips the hilt of his sword, the leather creaking under his gauntlet. Life or death? After a heavy silence, he makes his choice. Disarm them. Let them go. The bandit leader weeps with relief, but Gamson explodes, demanding to know why they are sparing this trash. Yen turns to the prisoners, his expression unreadable. Listen well, Yen commands, his voice cutting through the air. I understand the hell you live in, but preying on the weak, robbing caravans, that ends today. Yen reveals the truth that shocks them all. He, too, learned his deadly skills not for glory, but just to survive another day. Eldon stares at the noble, stunned by this confession. A mercenary gestures toward Goran, muttering that they only fight because the coin is good. But Yen ignores the cynicism, his voice rising in passion. Learn a trade, forge a new path, he shouts, his aura commanding authority. Find an honest way to live or die like dogs. The bandit leader bows deeply, tears in his eyes. He swears on his life to honor this mercy. Yen turns away, signaling his group to move out. He refuses to be dragged into any more senseless violence today. But they are not alone. High on a distant hilltop, a shadowy creature watches their departure. A predator lurking in the twilight. The figure rises from the darkness, revealing the terrifying form of a wolf with eyes that glow like burning coals. Unaware of the danger, the group decides to rest in the hamlet of Rootspur. Before they can continue their journey to Marcel, news spreads. The village chief is alerted that Sir Eldon's of the Katana Trading Company has graced them with his presence. The chief rushes to the courtyard, arms wide. Eldon's greets him with a booming laugh, the tension of the road melting away as he embraces his old friend. It has been months, the chief exclaims, asking for news from the outside world. Eldon's face darkens as he recounts the ambush. Bandits are everywhere, the merchant sighs. Ever since the emperor lost his mind, the world has gone to hell. The chief flinches, immediately hushing him. Quiet, if an imperial loyalist hears you, we're all dead. Eldon's waves it off, grinning. Don't worry, we survived thanks to the incredibly brave noble traveling with us. The chief raises an eyebrow, mentioning a noble who passed through weeks ago. A fraud he personally beat and threw out of the village. The Catman laughs, amused that his friend's temper hasn't changed. You always were reckless, he teases. But trust me, this one is different. Eldon swears by his reputation. This boy is the real deal. Brave, honest, and a demon with a sword. He saved us all. He even refused a reward, Eldon's adds, dropping the bombshell. The chief is floored. A noble who doesn't crave gold, that changes everything. The chief realizes that having a warrior of that caliber in Rootspur would be the ultimate defense. Against the rising bandit threat, public safety demands he make a move. He immediately invites the group to stay for a few weeks to rest and recover. Eldon's tries to decline, but the chief insists, playing the old friend's card. You're just trying to steal my bodyguard, Eldon's jokes, and the two men share a knowing laugh. The chief then looks around. So, where is this legendary hero? The reality is far less glamorous. Yen sits alone in a dusty corner, starving, looking more like a beggar on death's door than a knight in shining armor. Goran approaches, breaking the noble's trance. Sir Yan? The mercenary holds out a heavy cloth bag, the metal clinking with a satisfying sound. We sold the bandits' gear, Goran explains, fetched a decent price. It is a small fortune in confiscated coin. Yen eyes the bag sharply. Did you take a cut for yourself? Goran shakes his head instantly. No. You captured them. The spoils are yours. Yen stares at the coins resting in his helmet, calculating. Without hesitation, he grabs a massive handful. The majority of the loot and hands it back to Goran. Split this among your men, he orders. Goran recoils, refusing. That's too much. You did the work. But Yen pushes the bag into his chest. He shows his own hand, holding only a few meager coins. I have taken my share, the noble insists, his voice leaving no room for argument. Yen knows the game of survival. A few coins are nothing compared to the loyalty of a mercenary band. when the wolves of Kitten come hunting. Besides, Yan says, meeting the captain's eyes, I didn't fight alone. We bled together. That makes us comrades in arms. Hoping the gesture cements their bond, Yan bids them farewell and walks away. Goran watches him go, struck by a realization. This is true dignity. This is a leader who puts his men before his greed. The mercenary turns to his squad, his chest swelling with pride. Listen up, Goran bellows. Sir Yan has shown us great honor. He reveals the bounty, announcing that the noble has given them the profits of war. Yan ordered everyone to form a single line. The mercenaries froze, exchanging stunned glances. Was he serious, giving away gold that rightfully belonged to him? Their disbelief melted into raucous celebration. Cheers erupted, shaking the village walls as they chanted Yan's name like a god of war. Later that night, the young noble lay in a deep slumber at the inn, his sword resting faithfully by his side. The door creaked open, inch by agonizing inch. The candle flame beside the bed sputtered and died, plunging the room into darkness. Yan remained motionless, seemingly oblivious to the killing intent flooding the room. But in the shadows, a pair of crimson eyes watched. A masked figure loomed over the bed, a dagger gleaming in the moonlight. Flashback to the day before, Yan made a shocking announcement. He declared that the spoils of war would be shared. Every man would get his cut. The roar of approval from the crowd was deafening. As Yan walked through the city streets, the people hailed him as a hero. He had kept the rare artifacts, but distributed the gold. A calculated move. He bought their undying loyalty with mere coins. An elderly man stepped forward, bowing low. Are you Sir Yan? Yan raised an eyebrow. Do I know you? The old man smiled. I know you, sir. You are the nobleman associated with Lord Eldon. The Katana Trading Company has already covered all your expenses, the man explained, offering to lead him to the finest suite. It was Eldon's way of settling the debt between them. Yan didn't hesitate. Lead the way, he commanded, accepting the tribute. Meanwhile, in the barracks, a murmur of dissent rose. Why didn't he get paid? A soldier whispered, pointing at a sullen man. Gamson, that coward hid while we bled. Another scoffed. He deserves nothing. Humiliated, Gamson turned away, teeth gritted. Staring out the window, Gamson's eyes narrowed. He saw Yan being escorted to the luxury inn. Envy twisted in his gut. A wicked idea sparked in his mind. Yan arrived at his room, ready to wash away the grime of battle. He sank into the steaming hot water, letting out a long sigh. For a moment, the weight of the world lifted from his shoulders. A soft bed, a hot bath, simple luxuries he never realized could bring such bliss. It was a stark contrast to his life on the run. He had been living like a stray dog, without a roof over his head. Born a noble, he had taken these comforts for granted, until the mad emperor burned his world to ash. His territory was razed to the ground, his people slaughtered. Countless lives were extinguished in that attack. Yan survived, but he was walking a jagged line between life and death. Doubt crept in. Should he have accepted Karamov's offer? The Imperial army was relentless. They would hunt him down eventually. Execution was the only thing waiting for him if he was caught. He needed a strategy, a shield against the Empire. Suddenly, it clicked. The mercenaries didn't fear him, they feared Eldon. Or rather, the massive entity behind him. A band of sellswords wouldn't tremble before a merchant. But the Katana Trading Company was a different beast entirely. He recalled lessons from his youth. Trading companies were like spiderwebs, connecting nations through information and gold. Powerful networks could sway politicians, bribe nobles, and even influence national armies. That was the key. To survive the Empire's persecution, he needed to embed himself within a trading company. He needed their influence, but complex schemes could wait. His eyelids were heavy. Priority number one, fill his stomach and sleep. The night deepened. Yan drifted into slumber, his hand instinctively resting on the hilt of his sword. Silence was broken by the faint creak of the door. An assassin crept closer, his eyes locked on the prize. The thief reached for Yan's sword, but before his fingers could graze the hilt, a hand clamped around his wrist like a steel vice. Do you people ever get tired of this? Yan's voice was cold, devoid of sleep. The masked man froze in terror. Yan sat up, eyes piercing the darkness. Are you one of Karamov's dogs? The assassin struggled, screaming for release. With a flick of his wrist, Yen hurled the man across the room. He smashed through the door, ragdolling into the hallway. Desperate, the thief tried to crawl away, dragging his shattered body. But he realized too late he hadn't attacked a human. 5 minutes earlier, the innkeeper snored at the desk, oblivious to the conspiracy unfolding upstairs. Gamson and Pra crept up the stairs, moving like shadows. Relax, Gamson whispered. Leave it to Vulin. Vulin is the strongest man in the village, Gamson insisted. With a mask and dagger, he's a ghost. He won't get caught. Outside, Pell, a horse fanatic, prepped their getaway mount, shushing the animal nervously. The heist was in motion. Is that sword really worth the risk? Pra whispered, doubt creeping into his voice. Gamson's eyes gleamed with greed. Have you ever seen a blade cut a man in half? Gamson hissed. I watched that weapon slice a soldier into like paper. A weapon with that kind of power is priceless. Besides, he sneered, that knight is nothing without his magic sword. Suddenly, a crash echoed from the hallway. They peeked around the corner, hearts pounding in their throats. Their strongest man was crawling on the floor, and standing in the shattered doorway was Yan, looking less like a noble and more like a monster. The urge to scream died in his throat. Gamson watched the scene unfold in terrified silence. Beside him, Pra grabbed his arm, shaking violently, and demanded to know what hell had just broken loose. Gamson didn't hesitate. He looked his companion in the eye and hissed that if they wanted to keep breathing, they had to run now. A suffocating dread clawed at their throats, the heavy realization that their fate was already sealed. Just then, the innkeeper materialized from the shadows, demanding to know their identities and their business. Outside the chaos, Pell stood waiting with the horses. As he saw the others sprinting toward him, he casually remarked that they had finally decided to show up. Snapping with anxiety, Gamson roared at him to shut his mouth and prepare to ride for their lives. He whipped his head toward Pra, demanding to know the location of Vulin. Pra's voice trembled, barely a whisper. He admitted that Vulin was either a corpse already or moments away from becoming one. Gamson wasted no time, ordering everyone to mount their horses and vanish, but Pra hesitated, paralyzed by the thought of leaving Vulin behind. Pell also refused to abandon their comrade, but Gamson screamed a warning. The noble would hunt them all down if they stayed. Suddenly, the inn's roof detonated. Wooden tile shattered as Yoan, like a demon of war, leaped from the debris to crush them. Far away, on the bleak outskirts of the southern Holy Empire, bodies swayed gently from the branches of a lonely tree. Nearby, a soldier drove a heavy wooden stake into the earth with rhythmic thuds. He wiped his brow, turning to his partner to confirm the grim task was finished and the post stood firm. Together, they nailed a warning notice to the wood. It declared that these souls, along with their entire families, had been hanged for the crime of stealing a nobleman's property. The death warrant bore the terrifying signature of the Holy Empire's ruler, Emperor Cardian Bizlurk. Staring at the bodies, one soldier finally asked the question haunting him. What could they have possibly taken to deserve such a barbaric end? His partner let out a weary sigh and revealed the absurd truth. Rumor had it they stole a single chicken and 3 eggs from the territory of Baron Gavrov. The words hung in the air, heavy with disbelief. It sounded insane, even to a soldier of the Empire. Entire lives extinguished, bloodlines ended, all for a petty theft that wouldn't feed a man for a day. Meanwhile, the atmosphere in a nearby tavern was peaceful. Eldon sat at a quiet table, savoring a warm meal and a cup of tea. But the peace was short-lived. A subordinate rushed to his side, face pale, whispering that a disaster had occurred. Gamson, the mercenary, had been caught attempting to steal from the terrifying Sir Johann Yates. The news hit Eldon's like a physical blow. He shot up from his chair, eyes wide with shock, but the shock quickly morphed into calculation. He sank back into his seat, groaning in frustration. He had planned to recruit Sir Johann for the journey to Marseille, but those idiots had ruined everything. His expression turned cold. Eldons ordered his man to have Gamson captured immediately. The rest of the group was to feign total ignorance to save the company's reputation. The subordinate nodded, moving instantly to obey. He couldn't help but admire the terrifying calm with which the merchant from the katana company managed a crisis. Left alone, Eldons took a deep breath, forcing his racing heart to slow. He had survived worse than this. He was a survivor. He knew this wouldn't kill him, but navigating the wrath of a nobleman required surgical precision. He needed a plan, and he needed it now. Elsewhere, a village meeting dragged on into the night. The village chief stood, dusting off his clothes, and declared the assembly over. But before anyone could move, a villager burst through the doors, screaming for the leader. He gasped out the news that the troublemakers had been caught stealing from the nobility. The air in the room turned to ice. Fury twisted the chief's face. He slammed his fist onto the table, cursing the useless brats for dooming them all. A villager asked what could be done, but the question only fueled the chief's rage. There was only one path forward in this cruel world. He barked orders to gather tributes for the noble immediately, adding that they must also offer up one of the village slaves as a sacrifice. But that wasn't enough. He commanded them to prepare for an execution. They would kill the troublemakers themselves, right in front of the nobleman's eyes. The parents of the accused youths cried out in horror, pleading that they could not stand by and watch their children be slaughtered. Blind with fear and rage, the chief grabbed a heavy stool and smashed it into the floorboards. Screaming for silence, the wood splintered, echoing like a gunshot. He roared at the sobbing parents, asking if they were blind to reality. Had they forgotten the emperor's blood-soaked decree? He was practically foaming at the mouth. They had to act before the noble did. It was the only way any of them would see tomorrow's sunrise. The imperial law was absolute. Anyone coveting a noble's wealth would lose their tongue, their life, and their entire family would swing from the gallows alongside them. In neighboring regions, entire bloodlines had been wiped from history because of that insane law. The chief refused to let his village be next. And for what? A demand for a chicken and 3 eggs instead of fair wages. It was madness. But to the chief, all nobles were the same breed of monster. He turned his burning gaze to one of the mothers, demanding to know what she thought the noble would do to them now that he had been offended. A noble's pride was fragile and deadly. He wouldn't just punish the thieves. He would seek to wash away the insult with a river of blood. He might order every head in the village severed, all while preaching about the sanctity of a knight's honor. That was the reality they lived in. A man tried to argue, claiming the land belonged to Count Jaren. Surely they could appeal to the High Lord for protection against this injustice. The chief scoffed bitterly. Nobles only cared about their twisted games of face and status. They didn't give a damn if commoners lived or died. He slammed the table again, screaming for them to wake up from their fantasies. While the parents wept, the rest of the room fell into a grim silence. The chief's voice softened, heavy with resignation. Did they think he enjoyed this? Did they think he wanted to kill their children? With a heavy heart, he stated the cold truth. Sacrificing the few was the only way to save the many. It was a deal with the devil for the greater good. Moments later, under the sprawling branches of a large tree, a crowd began to form. The villagers gathered, eyes downcast, as the 3 young prisoners were brought forward. 3 figures kneel in the dirt, bound and defeated, while a 4th lies unconscious beside them. Watching the pathetic display, Yoan realizes this situation has spiraled completely out of control. These weren't assassins, but mere village brats blinded by greed. It seems they spotted his weapon and temptation took over, teaching him a valuable lesson. True treasures must remain hidden. Part of the blame, he admits, lies with his own carelessness for displaying such power openly. He decides to instill a little fear before letting them go. Seated, like a king on a makeshift throne, Yoan waits in the heavy silence. Finally, the village chief approaches, trembling as he asks if the honorable sir. Yoan is unharmed. Yoan doesn't mince words. No, he replies, his voice cutting like ice. I am far from all right. He leans forward, asking if it is the custom, in respect to greet guests with blades at their throats and hands in their luggage at. These words, the chief collapses in terror, pressing his forehead to the dirt in a deep kowtow. He begs for mercy, stating that the failure is his alone for not controlling these fools. Yoan issues a stern warning to one of the boys, ready to dismiss them all. But suddenly, the atmosphere shifts. The village chief draws a dagger. Raising the steel high above one of the young men's necks, he screams that he will wash away this insult to Sir Yan's honor with blood. Instantly, Yan extends his hand, his aura flaring as he orders him to stop. He never wanted a massacre. Yet, the chief, possessed by duty, insists that those who stain a noble's honor deserve only death. Ignoring the command, he raises the dagger once more to execute the youth. A mother's scream pierces the air as she shields her eyes. But the steel never tastes flesh, it stops inches from the target, frozen by an invisible pressure. Did I stutter? Yan asks, his voice dangerously cold. The chief and the villagers turn their gazes to Yan, paralyzed by his presence. In a silence so deep one could hear a pin drop, the crowd watches. Yan rises and asks if they have all lost their minds, willing to spill blood for such a trivial mistake. Firmly, he decrees that if they want the boys to pay for their crimes, let them pay with coin, not their lives. The crowd stares at Yan, unable to process his mercy. Realizing they missed the point, Yan clears his throat to break the tension. I will not say it twice, he declares. He questions how any code of honor can be worth more than a human life, ordering them to untie the youths and leave. The dagger slips from the chief's trembling fingers, thudding into the earth. Overwhelmed by such benevolence, the village leader kneels again, weeping at Sir Yan's wisdom. Pra's parents rush forward, collapsing in relief as they embrace their son. They are overjoyed to see him, safe and breathing. The chief is shaken to his core, a noble with a heart. It confirms that Eldon's was speaking the truth all along. As a sign of absolute submission, the mercenaries bow, swearing eternal gratitude to Sir Yan for his kindness. Gamson, the instigator, mumbles an apology, claiming he was ignorant of the noble's true nature and that he was merely tricked by an idiot into this mess. As the ropes fall away, a bystander mutters the cold truth. They are lucky, for any other night would have taken their heads without blinking. At that moment, the mercenary leader, Khan, approaches Gamson. The thief urges him to cut him loose. Bitterly, Gamson complains about his bad luck joining this cursed band. Suddenly, Khan's hand clamps onto his face like a vice. What are you doing? The thief stammers, panic setting in. Relax, Khan whispers, his voice devoid of warmth. It will be over soon. A shadow looms behind Gamson, a swift, lethal strike. As Yan spins around, sensing the killing intent, it is already too late. Gamson's lifeless body hits the dirt, executed in cold blood before his comrades. Fury blazing in his eyes, Yan demands to know what the hell they think they are doing. In response, Khan stands his ground. He cites the emperor's decree, deaf to any commoner who covets a noble's wealth. Yan grinds his teeth, retorting that his orders were clear. He did not want to see a single drop of blood. The silence returns, heavier than before, as the elders and mercenaries watch the standoff. Addressing Sir Yan, Khan explains that even sellswords have a code. He declares that Gamson's cowardice trampled on their honor and endangered the entire group. This execution was necessary to protect their way of life. Khan then flips his dagger, offering the hilt to Yan. If you believe I have challenged your authority, he says, then punish me. The realization strikes Yan like lightning. This man isn't a murderer. He protects his own honor, just as Yan protects his own. With a heavy sigh, Yan sheathes his sword. The crowd watches, breathless, as the tension hangs by a thread. Gently, Yan pushes the leader's blade aside. He admits frankly that he was arrogant to ignore the mercenary's position and offers an apology. The words hit the group like a physical blow. Eldon stares, shocked to hear a noble apologize to a hired gun. Yan gestures for Khan to put the weapon away, and the mercenary bows deeply, asking for forgiveness. The air clears as mutual respect is formed. A subordinate scolds Khan for recklessness, but the leader just smirks. In the distance, Eldon watches Yan, a new light of respect dawning in his eyes. His eyes narrowed. This noble was completely different from the vermin he was used to. Fair, brave, and utterly lacking that arrogant stench of authoritarianism. It sparked a burning question in Eldon's mind. How could a man like this even exist? Determination hardened in his chest. He would make Yoan his ally at any cost, using the man's brilliance to elevate his own reputation within the company. Later, the group continued their march, their silhouettes cutting through the horizon, on a road bathed in the crimson light of the setting sun. As the horses trotted rhythmically, Yoan examined a pocket watch he had snatched from the spoils of war. He turned the cold metal over in his hand. Regret washed over him. He had chosen the item that looked the most valuable, only to discover the mechanism was shattered beyond repair, useless junk. Suddenly, a presence approached from his blind spot. A young woman called out, addressing him as Master Yoan. She offered a wry comment, noting that it seemed she now had another person to look after. Before he could respond, a voice boomed from the nearby gate. The village chief hurried forward, bowing low and offering gifts prepared by the locals as a desperate token of gratitude. Among the pile of offerings, Yoan's eyes locked onto a familiar glint, a watch. He was genuinely surprised that these villagers had managed to scavenge something so precious. But the chief wasn't done. He pushed his slave forward, claiming the boy possessed a talent for geography and would be a useful tool. Yoan's expression darkened. It was the first time he had seen a human being in such a wretched, deplorable condition. Leaving him here like this, it was a death sentence. Whatever code he lived by, he couldn't walk away. Thanking the chief, Yoan ordered them to wash and feed the young man immediately while they prepared to move out. Just then, the chief announced that Godin had been officially accepted. Yet, even as he took the boy in, a knot of discomfort tightened in Yoan's stomach at the very idea of owning another person. Night fell over the camp. The mercenaries tore into roasted meat around a crackling bonfire, while one scolded Khan for trying to sneak a drink of alcohol. Godin approached Yoan, who was meticulously cleaning his blade in the firelight. The boy bowed his head and whispered the word, "Master." The youth handed him a meal, and Yoan nodded his thanks, but then his tone shifted. He asked Godin to drop the formalities and simply call him by his name. Grateful tears welled in the boy's eyes as he thanked him. Yoan watched closely, a suspicion taking root in his mind. Was this kid actually a woman? Curiosity piqued. He asked how someone with such a rare skill in geography ended up in chains. Godin's face fell. He replied quietly that it was not a story for the faint of heart. The youth hesitated, asking if tragedy befell nobles as well. Yoan replied that he wanted to hear Godin's truth first. The boy nodded, ready to bare his soul. He began his tale. Originally, he was a humble peddler, responsible for transporting and reselling weaponry across the rugged terrain of the eastern region. But greed is a powerful poison. On a nobleman's orders, he was dragged into a high-stakes gold smuggling operation. Hearing this, Yoan noted grimly that such a crime usually ended in the death penalty. He remarked that Godin was lucky to still be breathing. Godin explained the desperation that drove him. He needed a massive sum of money to support his family. His younger siblings were sick and starving to death. For their sake, he had walked into the fire. He continued to deliver the illicit gold, hiding it exactly as the nobleman commanded, until the day he was betrayed, reported by the very man who hired him. Yoan deduced the truth instantly. After serving his purpose, Godin was discarded like trash. He asked if the boy had at least tried to demand a trial. Godin shook his head bitterly. Under the emperor's iron decree, a commoner wasn't even granted the right to speak in their defense. Yoan asked the question that mattered most. Did he manage to send the money to his siblings? The youth explained that to avoid immediate execution, every copper was used to bribe the guards. Godin apologized for his failure, but Yoan cut him off. There was nothing to apologize for. The world was the problem. It was a cruel reality that made Yoan grind his teeth in fury. Without power, people were treated like criminals, exploited, and crushed under the boots of the nobility. No one was safe, not the private soldiers of House Brits, who survived only by stealing from others, not the people of Ruts, driven to the madness of sacrificing their own children just to see another day, and certainly not Godin, used and discarded like a broken tool. Yoan looked at the sky, wondering if there was any justice left in this world. Was any of this fair? He shook the thoughts away. This wasn't the time to worry about the world. He was being hunted by the emperor's army, and death could strike at any second. He called out to Godin, who responded with military promptness. Firmly, Yan declared that the hierarchy was gone. They were comrades now, they would survive, and they would live well together. Hearing this, a soft blush crept up the young woman's cheeks. Suddenly, the peace shattered. A mercenary rushed over, shouting that a monster had been spotted nearby. Yan stood up, letting out a frustrated sigh. He lamented that he couldn't even get 5 minutes of rest. Without missing a beat, he asked for the location, and the man pointed into the gloom as the group broke into a run. Godin stayed behind for a moment, silently repeating Yan's words about being comrades. Catching up to the group, the boy asked if the beast was close. The mercenaries replied that it was too dark to see clearly, but something was definitely lurking in the shadows. Fear hung heavy in the air. At that moment, Yan stepped out from behind the bushes. The mercenaries panicked, shouting for him to get down, but Yan remained calm. "It's all right," he said smoothly. He ordered them to sheath their weapons, leaving the mercenaries completely baffled by his confidence. Yan announced he was going to take a closer look and turned toward the pitch-black forest. Khan stepped forward, his voice tense. Fighting monsters required special skills, he warned. It was suicide. He reinforced that their mission was to protect Eldons, not to take unnecessary risks. Suddenly, Yan stopped dead in his tracks. He closed his eyes. "I feel it," he whispered. Taking a few steps forward, he approached a dense bush. A familiar pressure washed over him, an aura capable of freezing a normal man's heart. In the middle of the suffocating darkness, a pair of glowing eyes stared back at him. Yan smiled. He knew exactly what this was. Yan recognized the creature instantly as the Black Wolf of Illoman. It was the same beast that had slaughtered the wolves of Akitan to save him. Despite having 1,000 chances to strike, the apex predator had never harmed him. Trusting his instincts, Yan knew the beast meant him no harm. With a calm demeanor, he called out to the darkness, "Come on out, I know you're there." From the shadows, the massive silhouette of the Black Wolf emerged. Yan extended a hand, asking if it had followed him, and thanked it for the rescue. Khan watched in disbelief, asking if Yan truly knew how to handle monsters. One mercenary trembled, admitting he had never seen such a terrifying aura. The giant wolf approached slowly, sniffing Yan's face, and then, without warning, clamped its massive jaws right over Yan's head. Panic erupted. A mercenary screamed Yan's name in terror. Eldon stepped forward, shouting for the rookie to get away from the beast. But Yan, his head still inside the wolf's mouth, raised a hand. "Relax," he muffled. "Don't be scared of the big guy." Gripping the animal's fur, he made a stunning declaration. "This creature is the Guide of the Dawn." Eldon froze. "Is that true?" Eldon asked, his voice trembling. Yan looked confused. He had just repeated a title he felt was right, unaware of its weight. Trembling with excitement, Eldon began to recite an ancient legend of the Eastern Empire. There's an old song about this very creature. In the age of the Great War, a warrior bestowed a name upon the beast under the moonlight. That name was Guide of the Dawn. Upon receiving the name, the wolf bowed its head to the warrior. Its eyes burned with holy light, leading the charge at the forefront of the battlefield. When the war that divided the continent ended, the warrior brought peace, but fell as a hero. The wolf mourned its master's death. For 3 days and 3 nights, the beast cried. Then it vanished, journeying to places where order and heroes were needed most. That is the legend of the Guide of the Dawn. Yan frowned. "Are you sure?" "Everyone calls it the Black Wolf of Illoman." Eldon shook his head vigorously. "That is a southern lie, a distortion of the truth. The guide originates from the sacred folklore of the East." He recited a passage with reverence. "The Guide of the Dawn punishes evil and submits only to a brave hero." This phrase comes from the ancient texts, Eldon explained. Hearing this, the pieces of the puzzle finally clicked for Yan. He began to understand the true nature of the being standing before him. Awed, Eldon asked for permission to touch the divine beast just once. Yan agreed, but the moment Eldon reached out, a feral growl ripped from the wolf's throat. Eldon retreated instantly. "Okay, maybe I shouldn't do that." It seemed the beast had high standards. Yet, under Yan's hand, the terrifying predator purred like a kitten. Eldon wondered if the creature was only gentle with this specific boy. Suddenly, a realization struck Eldon like lightning. He remembered another crucial passage from the folklore. Give a name to the divine beast that follows you, and it shall become your vassal. He looked at the southerner with new eyes. Could this wandering boy be the legendary hero? He dismissed the thought, only for it to return with greater force a second later. Yan, Eldon asked intently, have you given a name to the Guide of the Dawn yet? Yan shrugged. Haven't had the chance. Do it now, Eldon insisted. If the legend is true, we are about to witness a miracle. Yan started to think, while Eldon helpfully suggested katana. Ignoring him, Yan's mind drifted to a darker memory. He recalled the last time he buried an enemy, that bastard from the Cardway family. Pointing at the creature, Yan made his choice. Your name will be Karamov. Eldon gasped in surprise, but the wolf's reaction was immediate. Recognizing the name, the wolf's eyes exploded with light. A shockwave of spiritual energy blasted outward, enveloping them both. The creature howled as ancient power reshaped its body. The transformation was complete. The true Guide of the Dawn, Karamov, had awakened. The evolved wolf faced its new master. Calmly, Yan patted its head. I'm counting on you, partner. Turning to Eldon, Yan smiled. Pretty incredible, right? But when he looked down, Eldon was on his knees, head pressed to the dirt. Tears streamed down the veteran's face. I have seen a myth come to life, Eldon sobbed. It happened exactly as the legends foretold. He declared his absolute respect. From the moment I saw you, I knew you were different. You protected us from bandits, showed mercy to enemies, and now, you have been chosen by the divine beast itself. Eldon raised his voice for all to hear. I proclaim you the hero of hard times. The mercenaries and Godin gasped. Whispers spread like wildfire. Is Yan really the prophesied hero? Yan's expression darkened with discomfort. He turned to the prostrated commander, his tone restrained. I'm sorry, Eldon, he said. I am not the hero you imagine. I'm just a wanderer from a ruined house, struggling to survive. He revealed the cold irony of the name. I'm being hunted because I beat the real Karamov to death. I am a criminal, not a savior. Yan apologized for shattering the fantasy. But Eldon simply shook his head, his eyes shining with renewed loyalty. I see no disappointment here. To repay Yan's kindness, Eldon offered an introduction to the Mayan Trading Company. At the mention of that name, a memory sparked within Yan. Yan turns to Godin, asking about their destination. He has never heard of this place before. Godin explains that Marseille is legendary. It is a free trade city, one of the few sanctuaries the Emperor's claws cannot reach. This information immediately sparks Yan's interest. Without hesitation, he accepts the offer. He states plainly that he cannot ignore such a stroke of luck. While Godin offers a silent thanks, Yan's mind races. If the Emperor cannot touch him there, perhaps he can start a new life as a simple merchant. Godin begins to hum a cheerful tune, but Yan is deep in thought. He hopes no rumors spread about him being some kind of hero. He reflects on the title Hero of Hard Times. It sounds nice, but he wonders if he truly fits such a legendary description. The reality is harsher. In his past life and this one, he sees himself as nothing more than a wanderer, fighting just to survive. A dark memory surfaces, an imposing figure looming over him, decreeing that his existence would be nothing but eternal suffering. Yan clenches his fist. His previous life was hell, but this time is different. He decides to move forward, guided only by his own iron will. With resolve set, the group departs for the city of wealthy merchants. Godin remarks that he never dreamed he would see his home again. They walk through the bustling market, and Yan suggests they stock up on supplies. Suddenly, Karamov bolts ahead of the group. Yan panics and calls out to him, but a vendor simply leans in, cooing at the beast and offering it a treat. What a cute little thing, the vendor smiles. Watching this, Yan realizes the truth. To everyone here, the terrifying beast looks like a puppy. Just a day before entering Marseille, the situation was very different. The group had gathered in the dense forest. Yan had turned to the massive wolf, Karamov. He explained that a monster of that size would cause a panic in the city. He asked the beast to wait outside. In response, Karamov's body began to glow and shift. Yan watched intently as the creature transformed, taking on a tiny, harmless form. He stared in shock. You really got smaller? He asked. It seemed this was yet another miraculous ability of a divine beast. Godin wasted no time. He ran up and hugged the mini Karamov, squealing about how cute he was. Yan decided this size would cause no trouble. Back in the present, a crowd gathers around the fluffy oddity. They whisper, wondering if it's a rare pet from a foreign land. Flustered, Godin apologizes for the little one's lack of manners, but Yan cuts in they need to move. The pursuers are still out there. Moments later, Godin stops Yan. He points to a large bag and offers to handle all the equipment shopping. I used to be an equipment merchant, he reminds him. Yan checks his funds and reveals he only has for silver coins. He asks if that's enough to buy everything. Godin smiles confidently and takes just a single silver coin. I promise, Godin declares. I'll get everything we need with just this one coin. Yan looks at him like he's crazy. He tells Godin not to get carried away. What could possibly be bought with such a pathetic amount of money? Some time later, Yan stands fully equipped, his jaw on the floor. He can hardly believe everything was purchased with a single coin. They acquired a tactical bag for Yan and a supply backpack for Godin. Their storage problems are completely solved. Godin's silver tongue is a weapon. He managed to sell a destroyed helmet for a fortune and even swindled a mace for free. Vinegar, maintenance oil, supplies, they bought it all. And somehow, they ended up with more money than they started with. Yan is stunned. If a broken helmet sells for that much, the equipment he buried for Karamov must be a king's ransom. He decides right then, if he ever returns to that spot, he will dig up the stash and sell it for a fortune. You seem happy, Yan observes. You really were a master merchant, weren't you? While organizing his new pack, the young man smiles bittersweetly. He confesses that he truly missed this life. The nightmare of being a slave flashes through his mind. The days of despair, living in constant fear of death. But now, after meeting Yan, he feels like he has reclaimed his soul. The life of a merchant is his again. Godin thanks him sincerely. Even if I had never been a slave, I would have chosen to travel by your side. Yan feels a warmth in his chest. That makes me happy. He says, I'm counting on you from now on. Okay, Yan, comes the enthusiastic reply. With high spirits, the two set off to explore the depths of Marseille. Upon arriving in the city, Yan's world changes. He had known only hardship, but now, he tastes true happiness. The meat he used to eat was like shoe leather. Here in Marseille, the food melts in his mouth like butter. Before, he was filthy and his skin crawled with itch. Now, he can soak in hot water whenever he pleases. He remembers sleeping on cold, damp rocks that bruised his bones. In Marseille, he sinks into soft, warm blankets. Yan concludes that life here is paradise. He decides to settle down in this city of comfort. He dreamed of a happy ending in Marseille. However, fate had other plans, and his peaceful life was about to be shattered. Desired. By the next day, the Marseille city square was alive with energy. As they walked, Yan remarked on the tranquility surrounding them. It felt like a lifetime since he had strolled through the streets with such calm. But suddenly, a cold chill ran down his spine. Something was wrong. His instinct screamed danger. Noticing a crowd gathered ahead, he wondered if another ruthless gang of bandits was lurking nearby. A bystander confirmed the grim news. Criminals had kidnapped Dave's daughter and stripped them of every single good they were transporting. Yan continued eating his skewer, his sharp ears picking up every whisper. The locals murmured fearfully, with bandits on the loose. Peace was a luxury they could no longer afford. Beside him, Godin noted the heavy atmosphere. He told Yan that the city's anxiety was entirely due to the growing bandit threat. Further ahead, a thug was terrorizing a food vendor. He threatened to pay later, screaming, "Do you have any idea who I am?" The man roared that he just wanted a meat skewer, claiming he hadn't eaten in for days. This wretch was a straggler from the Akitan wolves. He had been separated from his pack while hunting Yan and had washed up in Marseille. He turned to escalate the argument, but froze dead in his tracks. In that heartbeat, predator and prey locked eyes. The mercenary recognized him instantly. "You bastard!" he screamed, charging with killing intent. Yan realized the Akitan wolves had tracked him all the way to Marseille. The situation was catastrophic. A public brawl here would bring nothing but disaster. He knew that nothing good could come from a fight in this sanctuary. Die, the mercenary howled, leaping forward with his sword raised high. But before the steel could bite, a rider surged from the crowd. With a single, decisive strike, the horseman smashed the attacker into the dirt, defeating him instantly before the stunned onlookers. The rider gazed down at the scene, noting how the current chaos attracted all manner of filth. He turned his piercing gaze to Yoan, calling him a wanderer. The man asked if he was injured. Yoan replied that he was unharmed and thanked the stranger for his timely intervention. With a warm smile, the man advised him to always stay vigilant. A moment later, he turned his steed and rode down the street. But the drama was far from over. An army of mercenaries began to assemble, their boots thundering against the cobblestones. The troops lined up in perfect formation. Brazil, captain of the Oakwood mercenaries, addressed the crowd with booming confidence. He assured them that his 500 warriors would annihilate the bandit plague and restore safety to Marcel once and for all. Godin stared in awe at the spectacle, while Yoan asked if they were well known. Godin explained that the Oakwood mercenaries were legends in the Empire. It became clear to Godin, with bandits roaming the region, this elite group had surely been hired to exterminate them. Yoan remained silent, observing the scene with cold calculation. His mind raced through the possibilities. If Brazil hadn't intervened, his identity would have been exposed in the fight. If that had happened, his time in Marcel would be over. The Empire would be upon him instantly. The memory of his vow that only suffering awaited him from here on out echoed in his mind. Taking a deep breath, he composed himself. He had to remember that he was still a fugitive. The only path to survival was to build an alliance with a major trading company, a power not even the Emperor dared to touch. Fortunately, Eldons held him in high regard, granting him a foot in the door with the Machin Trading Company. But the risk remained. He wondered what would happen if his true identity were revealed before the deal was sealed. The conclusion was grim. If the company discovered the Empire was hunting him, they wouldn't lift a finger to protect him. If he was exposed before establishing a bond with Katana, his death was certain. With his objective clear, Yoan clenched his fist. Determination blazed in his eyes. He had to reach the Katana Trading Company and secure their protection before his mask slipped. His true identity must remain a secret at all costs. Suddenly, a female voice cut through his thoughts. "Is it really you?" A beast woman stepped forward, introducing herself as Ibella, an exclusive agent of the Katana Trading Company. She explained that she had heard of his legendary deeds through Eldons and wished to forge a deep connection with him and his house. Without wasting time, Ibella invited him to accompany her to the Katana headquarters. They arrived at the Marcel branch of the company. Outside, Godin tried to grab Karamov's paw, only to get his hand bitten by the small creature. Inside, Yoan waited alone in a luxurious parlor. He had finally reached the company, nurturing the hope that this was his turning point. Just then, a woman approached from behind. "Are you Mr. Yoan?" she asked, mentioning she had heard the rumors from Eldons. Yoan turned to see her stand tall and introduce herself formally. The aura of authority around her was unmistakable. She identified herself as Yoan, the manager of the Katana Trading Company's Marcel branch. Yoan bowed his head in return. He introduced himself as a scion of the House of Yates, and she expressed her delight in finally meeting him. Yoan invited him to sit for tea, and he agreed. A steaming beverage, a rare trade good from the Mediterranean, was placed before him. She commented that she hoped the drink suited his taste. Yoan thanked her, but the aroma told him this wasn't tea, it was coffee. Curiously, he asked if it was brewed from roasted fruit seeds. Yoan's eyes lit up, praising him for his sharp perception. She leans forward, cutting through the pleasantries. Manager Yoan states she already knows the true reason for his visit. Panic strikes. Yoan flinches, knocking his drink over in surprise. Has she found him out? Is the Emperor's assassin squad already closing in? Sensing his terror, Yoan raises a hand to calm him. She clarifies her words. It isn't his past she sees, but his future. "I see the ambition burning in your heart," she declares. Yoan freezes, confusion washing over him. What is she playing at? She reveals her hand. She knows about his time in Eldon, how he protected the weak and showed mercy to the defeated. Now, standing in Marcella City rotting with banditry, she sees that same fire. He intends to save this city with his own two hands. Yoan admits defeat. She saw right through him. Yoan smiles softly. Ambition is not a sin, she assures him. It is a virtue of the worthy. She drops the bait. And the Katana Trading Company? We take great pleasure in sponsoring those with the will to rise. The gears turn in Yoan's mind. This is a golden opportunity. Yoan sweetens the pot. She can introduce him to the governor of Marseille immediately. He realizes the power of this offer. The governor is the king of this city. With the company and the law on his side, he would be untouchable. Not even the emperor could reach him here. He has no choice. He must take the deal. He thanks her, but remains cautious. What exactly does a sponsorship from the Katana Trading Company entail? Yoan spreads her arms. Everything. Access to their finest restaurants, luxury inns, and every entertainment district they own. Then her expression hardens. She raises a single finger. However, there is one condition. You must become our sword. She demands that whenever the company calls, he must fight under their banner without question. Yoan narrows his eyes. Does this mean cleaning up your bandit problem? Yoan shakes her head. The Oakwood mercenaries are already handling the trash. She dismisses. For you, I have a special task in mind. The air in the room grows heavy. Yoan explains that resentment is building against them. Merchant districts are accusing the company of a monopoly. Her eyes turn cold. Eliminate them, the dissident members, and preferably their children too. Wipe the bloodline clean. She locks eyes with him, searching for a reaction. That is my single condition. What say you, swordsman? Yoan sits in stone-cold silence, the weight of the proposal crushing the air around them. Outside, the sun bleeds into the horizon over the Katana branch. Time skips forward. Yoan steps out of the building. The meeting concluded. Gordon is waiting, grinning like a fool. How'd it go? Gordon asks. Yoan doesn't answer. He just stares at the sky, lost in thought. Gordon waves a hand. Hey Earth to Yoan. Suddenly, Yoan grabs him, eyes wild with excitement. Gordon, we're going to suck some honey. We're going to drain it dry. Gordon blinks, completely baffled. Suck honey. He stares at Yoan like he's lost his mind. But an hour earlier, the vibe was very different. Flashback to the room. Yoan's voice is steel. I refuse. He slams the logic down on the table. In a city this size, complaints are natural. You dominate the market, he argues. Instead of dialogue, you want a massacre? His aura flares with indignation. Kill them. Kill their children. I am a warrior, not a butcher. I will not slaughter innocents for your profit. He stands up, ready to walk. Let's pretend this conversation never happened. The tension in the room is suffocating. Silence stretches for an eternity. Then Yoan's icy mask cracks. A smile breaks through. You pass. Yoan pauses, blindsided. Yoan bows slightly, respect in her eyes. It was a test of character. We needed to know if you were truly worthy. She clarifies the truth. The monopoly is a myth. The company is beloved by the merchants. They would never demand the slaughter of children. The terms of luxury stand, she adds warmly. But you don't need to rush to the battlefield. She reassures him again. The Oakwood squad has the bandits handled. For now, just enjoy the sponsorship, recover your strength. She extends her hand, an invitation to a brighter future. Welcome to the Katana Trading Company. Yoan's face lights up. He grips her hand firmly. The pact is sealed. A powerful ally is secured. Yoan smiles, her eyes gleaming. May this partnership bring us both prosperity. Back in the present, Gordon scratches his head. So what does suck some honey actually mean? Yoan laughs. It means we spend their money like water. We live like kings on their dime. Gordon's eyes go wide. So the negotiations worked. Better than worked, Yoan confirms. I got the sponsorship. Gordon cheers, slapping him on the back. Internally, Yoan feels a wave of relief. He just arrived in Marseille and already secured the ultimate shield. The bandits are being purged by mercenaries. The city is stabilizing. Peace is finally within his grasp. The happy life he dreamed of, it's right there. He takes a deep breath, ready to finally relax. But fate is cruel. A blood-curdling scream tears through the air. The crowd ahead parts in horror. Bodies, mutilated and scattered across the street like trash. Yoan freezes. Gordon points a trembling finger. What is that? Yan's arrival cut through the tension, prompting him to demand answers. Goran's expression was grim as he revealed the chilling truth. The bandits had evolved. No longer content with theft, they had turned to slaughtering merchant families to terrorize the city. A mangled corpse lay displayed on the cold stone of the square, a brutal message. Staring at the gruesome sight, Yan realized this was no simple raid. The situation had spiraled into a nightmare. Round him, the atmosphere reached a boiling point. "This city has failed us," a citizen screamed, demanding accountability from Marchal's leadership. Fear was quickly turning into rage. Another voice cut in. "It's the Emperor. He's behind this." But the accusation was laughed off as madness. The mob was fracturing. Arguments erupted, turning the square into a cacophony of defending and cursing the Emperor. Accusations flew like arrows, overlapping in a chaotic roar. Yan stood silent in the eye of the storm. He watched the fragile peace of Marcel shatter, destroyed by the bandits' psychological warfare. His mind raced to the one variable that didn't make sense. Where were the mercenaries? Meanwhile, in the manager's office, panic was setting in. Ibella burst through the doors, breathless. "Manager Ian, I have terrible news." Ian, already aware of the bodies in the square, cut to the chase. "What are the Oakwood mercenaries doing?" she demanded. Ibella hesitated, fear flickering in her eyes. We haven't been able to contact them." The silence in the room was deafening. "What does that mean?" Ian pressed. Ibella's voice trembled as she dropped the final blow. "The liaison officer. His body was found near the forest yesterday. He was butchered." Ian felt a cold shiver run down her spine. The Oakwood mercenaries possessed military power rivaling an entire city. The idea that a ragtag band of bandits could wipe them out was impossible. Tension clawed at her throat. She slammed her hand on the desk, the sound echoing like a gunshot. "Ibella," she barked, "get Swedga, now. Bring me the image of Ethel River. We need his prophecies to see if they were truly defeated." Under the pale glow of the moonlight, the Ethel River flowed silently. Swedga dipped his hand into the water, his eyes glowing with arcane knowledge. "I see it clearly now," he murmured. He turned to Ian with a cold smirk. "You are mistaken, manager. Searching for the mercenaries is a waste of time." The water rippled, forming an image. The prophecy speaks of Yan, the man who slaughtered the Emperor's hound and vanished. He is hiding right here, in the pocket of Marcel. Swedga's grin widened maliciously. "But things will not go the way that bastard imagines."